on, everybody? Welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover Ayashimon, Mission Yozakura Family, Jujutsu Kaisen, Dr. Stone, My Hero, and One Piece, week to week. Back this week covering Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 8. I am your host, Eagle.
Knox.
Mellow Yenis.
And joining us once again on the main show here is Broken Ronin. What's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on here.
Yes, of course. And we will put all his links down below, anywhere you can find him and check out the stuff he does. We'll put that down below in the description for you guys to see. So go ahead and check that out. Give him a follow, give him a subscription, all that good stuff. And while you're down there, as usual, you can find our links, which are links to any and all of our individual social media accounts, such as Twitter, online communities such as Discord, places to listen to the podcast, audio listening platform-wise, and ways to support the podcast by looking at our Patreon or our online store.
Yeah.
Also, you can find timestamps down there to conveniently navigate yourself through the video and avoid spoilers for series you're not current in. And while you're down there, you can go ahead and slap a like on that goddamn video and subscribe to the channel for more fire weekly content. So, with all those words said, how you boys feeling, man? This is Fire Weekend Jump.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
No One Piece, which is sad, but great week to have Ronin here. Good to see you again, brother.
Yes.
Appreciate you having me here. This was a really good chapter, I feel like, to be invited on.
Yeah.
Cause it was just a fire week all around. So, I'm pretty excited to get into the series and start talking about them.
Yes. All right, well, with all that being said, we might as well go ahead and jump right into Chapter 9 of Ayashimon, Over My Dead Body. And we start off this week's chapter with a fire-ass color cover.
I love it.
Yes. Urara.
The color palette is just so, it just hits you
It
like
pops.
right away.
It definitely
pops.
boom,
Yeah. All the reds and the pinks and purples.
Dark reds against the blacks, and just the art with Urara and the way her facial expression.
Mm-hmm.
Yuji Kaku.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the fire in the foreground contrasting with the neon lights in the background and being this kind of juxtaposition between old school traditional yokai supernatural and the modern tech.
Yeah.
Just beautiful, soft, warm color page. Love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yuji Kaku definitely doing what Yuji Kaku does. He just be making shit that's look good. I don't know what else to say about this.
Right, yeah. It's just a beautiful color page. I don't remember.
Bring a tear to your eye.
Yeah. This one just jumped out and spoke to me more so than a lot of the last couple of color pages that I've seen in anything. So
Yeah. Most definitely.
very good.
But yeah, getting into the chapter, it's man, Maruo. He's not doing so good. We really need this power system introduced or something.
I mean, I'm cool with him getting whooped in this chapter. You know what I mean? We were talking about it in the last, review about, how, you were saying, we need, some more power system stuff, and this is a good reason to get it. You know what I mean? Having an obstacle like Doppo come in and just shut down, the current leading strategy of Maruo's is a really good way for us to go into deeper power system explanations coming out of it. You know what I mean? It's well, what else can you do if you find yourself in a situation like this in the future?
Yeah, because he's legitimately just hallucinating, hitting Buddy at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Which definitely was whoa.
Yeah.
Threw me off for sure.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the chapter here, Ronin?
So I like this chapter a lot. Obviously, I've been liking Ayashimon quite a bit just in general. I'm just a fan of Yuji Kaku's writing style and things like that. But I really liked Maruo's kind of defeat here to Doppo. But I liked it for two reasons. One, because like you guys were saying earlier, it's kind of a reason to introduce a power system, which I'm interested in seeing how that's going to work. Especially considering his past work with Tao and Hell's Paradise.
Yes.
But I also really liked a little bit furthering of Maruo's obsession with shonen protagonists.
Yeah.
The fact that he's he doesn't, and this was touched on a little bit earlier. He mentions beating up weak people is not very cool or whatever. It's not something that he really enjoys, right? He's not sadistic or anything, but he enjoys the core shonen idea of never giving up and that type of thing, and that applies to his own backstory with his clearly abusive father. I just like that because these were it was kind of sprinkled across the first chapter, and I think it was I don't know, somewhere in the middle where they were just picking up some of their lackeys, and I think seeing it a little bit more explicitly has just been pretty interesting. And I hope that it's something that we get to see more and more of, that Maru has to deal with and confront, and like why he is the way that he is, and
Yeah.
whether or not that's going to change is something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're just kind of giving you little bits of that abusive, upbringing that Maruo had, just like the bare bones, characterization and development, like backstory for the main character, because they're going to expand on that at a much later point, and we've seen that before.
We already got that he beat his dad's ass, right?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
he was like 6 or something like that.
Right. Yep. So we did see that he did eventually whoop his dad, but I can just see like a full blown like backstory for Maruo just later on in the storytelling, with his mom included, because we don't know anything about his mom at all. You know what I mean? So there's definitely more there, and we've seen it in manga storytelling before, where they just give you little crumbs, of the MC's story, and then dump some crazy shit on you at a much later point when you're like thoroughly invested in the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, the focus on Maruo in this chapter was right on time for me. Like it's cool. Like you can have, like we've had Urara in the spotlight for multiple chapters in a row now, and that makes sense because like she's the more deeper character, or whatever. And you can have Maruo in the background, like just being an easy to love punch machine, like main character or whatever, while you flesh out, the little Yakuza gang boss, little by little. And it's not only for Urara's character, but you also get world building simultaneously when you focus on her, because of her ties to the Yakuza, so you get some 2-in-1 writing there. Yeah, and then every so often you give a splash of development for Maruo, even better when he's facing this major first obstacle, and now things are starting to feel, really, really good inside of the writing between both characters.
Yeah, most definitely.
The part that I quite liked, where he's like, I don't care if I win, I just don't want to lose. And then prior to that, on page 6, when Dopo's like summoning the blizzard, the sign on the store literally says wins.
It says what?
Wins. Yeah, wins. Just on the side. It's like one of the hanging signs.
Wins.
Yeah, it says wins. Like literally win, lose. And I was like, that's kind of cool, where he's just like wins, and then just like then it follows up, then it has that follow up. It's like, I don't care about wins. I just care about not losing.
Yeah.
I'm here to fight.
That is a cool spot. Wow.
And the idea that like, I also like that little thing on like page 12. He's like, they don't turn evil no matter what they go through.
Yes.
They never give up. That I liked. And then hidden within all of that like personal development, Dopo's actually able to be punched in number 13. So I'm not entirely sure what the condition is for Dopo's.
You mean on page? On page.
That's hallucination.
13,
No.
Yeah, that's hallucination.
Yeah, that wasn't like an actual connection.
He was imagining that.
Oh, brutal.
Because on the next page, he's on the ground, passed the fuck out.
Yeah.
I think what happens is Maru like breaks the ice off of him. He's like, he wants to keep going. His mind keeps running the fight, but his body just kind of collapses.
Yeah.
And that's why in the next page he's like, I like you kind of scared me. I was a little nervous. He kind of kept getting up after my text.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
But it made me wonder.
That is cool though, that Dopo ended up having a snow-based technique like right after we kind of like talked about, because I mean like in the chapter before, it's introduced as like a flame that steals heat instead of just being naturally like, hot like the fire that we're used to, you know what I mean? And then we were talking about, Maruo punching him in the last chapter and how it seemed to have to break apart possibly like a snow effect, and it's kind of hard to tell because of Yuji Kaku's illustration style without like raw explanation for it like right next to it, but it did kind of feel almost like Monet, in One Piece, and like the way that attacks kind of like go through her. So we were talking about the possibility that he could have some kind of snow related abilities on top of this, heat stealing flame, and then the next chapter we literally get a blizzard. So that was really cool.
Yeah, them being a Yuki-onna type.
Yuki-onna is what you said. Yeah. That was super tight.
The Ice Woman.
Yeah.
And then This is confirmation of Urara's like true form. She's a
Yeah, dude.
Nekomata, the two-tailed demon cat.
Yeah.
Nekomata, yeah.
Yeah, those are
Oh, shit.
traditionally like domestic cats that like live a long time, and then they reach a level of like growth, and they have the chance to become these yokai when their tails split, and they become that. And there's like the ones that are like it's basically domestic cats that show up, they become demons, and the more they were abused in their life as a cat, the more powerful they are as yokai.
Ooh.
They are vengeful spirits. They are gonna like hunt the ones that like they bring along calamity to those who have wronged them, and like they do stuff traditionally like playing a shamisen and dancing and like causing like corpses to come to life, or like
Ooh.
animate corpses during funerals and stuff, and like
Whoa.
poltergeist haunting of houses and stuff. The Japanese actually had a tradition where they cut the tails off cats because they believed that if the tail wouldn't split, they couldn't become yokai.
Oh shit.
Like way back when.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I didn't think of Nekomata at all. I've definitely heard of that in Japanese folklore before, but I think I just like thought it was Kirin like until just now because I saw somebody on the timeline like say like, oh, she's a Kirin, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like went with it, you know what I mean? But like what you're saying right now is like totally what it is.
And I think it fits with her character of clearly like trying to get sort of like retribution. So the
Yes.
idea of Nekomata being
Yes.
the type of yokai that grow stronger with the wrongdoings that were dealt to them. I think that it's very fitting, and
Yeah.
I really like how you can figure out a lot of what these characters are going to be, or like kind of like their general arcs as characters based off of their yokai designs or like what type they are. I think that's a very interesting style of writing. So
Yeah.
that was a
I
nice
love
catch.
it.
I definitely didn't get that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Yuji
no.
Kaku is like known for just like dumping all of the research that he does for his stories like right into the narrative. You know what I mean? So like it's
Yes.
the fact that the Nekomata story lines up that well with Urara's own kind of origin, as far as we understand it so far, is really fucking cool. Just like Ronan was
Yeah.
saying, it's like we
I
can
That
just
eat
look
cat
at
that
lord
shit
it.
just
up.
blew my fucking mind.
Yeah,
I'm
that shit
low-
was wild.
I'm
Oh, I
low-key,
eat that shit
like,
up, dude.
what
I
the
love
fuck
this
is
stuff.
wrong with these people? Like, yo,
Yeah, but I mean,
who's
like,
cutting the cat's tail. Yo, that's
I
crazy.
mean,
like if you think about it from like a
traditionally-
worship and like a like a just like a religious standpoint of things, it's like you come to understand the lore
These
of
things,
your
yeah.
of your mythos, to a certain degree, and it's like, well, these Nakomata are definitely a thing, so like let's just make sure that they get the yokai form properly when they
Yeah.
transition by slicing
why
their
not
fucking
just,
tails
like,
down the shit. Yeah,
Treat every cat with absolute love and
absolutely, yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
no,
Yeah,
actually,
don't touch
that's a
them.
big thing. That's a big thing. Nekomatas would like curse a family 7 generations for like cruelly killing cats.
Whoa.
Damn.
They'll do stuff like that. I mean, even in Egypt, cats are, like in Japan and Egypt mythology,
Cats are sacred.
cats
and
are
shit.
are related to that are
Royalty.
considered sacred, and they're always related to like death,
Mhm.
right? And I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit because like you know those cats when they're like they're staring off at something, and you're like, what the fuck are you looking at? What are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yo,
You know, and it's like, okay, I get it. Like cats
Right
being
now,
tied
I
to
feel
the
like my
dead.
cat.
I was just
Oh, dude.
watching.
Yeah, I was watching your cat in the background. I'm like, Eagle, you better pay respect.
Hey, I was just
Pay
watching
respects,
fucking.
bro.
Give him some scritches.
I was just
Respect, man.
watching the old Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser, and fucking
Yeah.
like, not that those are like really good references for Egyptian culture and like history or whatever, but like the scenes where Imhotep isn't like fully regenerated yet, and they just keep pulling the cat out on him, and then he like tries to run away from the cat,
Yeah.
turns into a fucking sand tornado and bounces. Like, I'll
I
be
love
back.
that.
Cat out of here.
I literally thought of that when I was like going through some of this stuff, and I was
Yeah.
like, man.
Get that cat out of here.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because like Enma is dead, and like the old expression, they fucked up off the mountain.
Yeah.
They went up the mountain and fucked off and just stuff. So like Nekomata, some of them come. There's like 2 types of Nekomata. There's the ones that live in the city, and there's the ones that come from the mountains. So it's idea like she was up in the mountains, she was in hiding, and then she came down from the mountain into the city. So I'm like, this is
Yeah.
yeah. That as soon as I saw that 2 split tails, and I was like, what the hell? Because I was looking at her face, and I was like, 6 eyes.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you? Are you like a kitsune? Are you a what are
I
you?
wonder
And
if
that's a
Did
tail.
Nekomata, like when you search him or whatever, do they not like naturally have 6 eyes or whatever? Because I feel like that's a little splash of some Yuji Kaju or Yuji Kaku throwing his stank on it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
think he is. I think so
Yeah.
too. Because like when I look at the pictures, it's just like they look like kind of like humans, but like they got these weird cat faces. It's like you know, the Hermione Granger polymorph potion fuck up thing. I'm like, you goofy looking. I don't know.
Right. I think she looks.
Yeah,
tight.
the design is beautiful.
Super cool.
So worth the 8-week, 9-week build up here. Definitely,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really interesting because 9 numerically is like a traditional number for like power.
Oh, sure.
And so it being in the 9th chapter, she's unleashed her full like supposedly her full power.
Right.
And even on her pelt, those like little swirls that you see, like those little spirit fire swirls that are on her kimono, appear on her pelt, and they look like 9s. So it's like, that's cool.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and this is the end of the first volume, right?
And
I
cats
think,
are
yeah,
supposed to have
yeah.
9 lives.
Oh shit. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you
9
go.
lives. Cat's eyes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I tell you what though, I can't wait to see like Maruo's reaction when he wakes up and like realizes that he did lose the fight.
Yeah.
What kind of like either despair or like determination that's going to spur on in him.
He's gonna tie it back to manga and be like, "I lost. Good.
Yeah.
That means the
Yeah,
training arc is next." You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's
right,
exactly what I was thinking.
right.
Is like, yeah, just like whatever manga character you decide to relate it to. He's like, yeah, I remember their first loss, then they got way stronger.
Yes, exactly. I love that. The manga
Mhm.
protagonist motivation for Maruo is being handled extremely well, in my opinion. Like, it's not overbearing. It doesn't get, annoying, at least not for me anyway. It's written in a more mature way than I originally thought it would be. And what also helps is that it's rooted in something that's just so relatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially, like, he's just a nerd, you know what I mean? Just like us. Every single one of us, anyone who's watching this right now, has wanted to be the main character of some kind of comic book story, whether it's a superhero or an actual manga protagonist. Like, if you've been in this lifestyle, if you've been with the shits,
Yeah.
like the fiction, like if you've been with fiction your whole life, like
You literally tried to go Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
like shut the fuck up, from upstairs.
You tried to Kamehameha, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Give me your energy.
all
Yo.
that shit.
I mean,
Yeah.
straight up, when I was a kid, do you guys remember the series Escaflowne?
Absolutely.
So they did the dowsing thing to like, whenever she got stumped, she used the dowsing crystal to like figure out what to do. And I would do that when I was like literally lost, or if I was stumped on like a multiple choice test, and I was like, okay, cool. And I got fantastic grades. It was the dumbest thing ever.
So it
I was
worked.
Not a good. Yeah, it worked.
Hell no. Yeah, dude, this chapter is
It's
fire.
in there.
Test, or I mean, not test. Fuck test.
10?
10 manning up. 10 manning up and not handing over the knife was like really good for me too. Like he had a great moment. He had a great moment, like just as I was starting to think that he wasn't doing enough. You know what I mean? Like he was just a guy who was there, and it's been a little bit too long of him being that weak, scared guy who's in the background. You know what I mean? And now it's really starting to feel a little bit like a squad now. You know what I mean? And I just love where we're at in the story right now.
Yeah, for sure. It was a Big 10 moment for me too. Yeah.
I'm really
He
excited.
definitely could have
to
just
see
folded
where
and
it
like
goes.
tossed him the knife.
Yeah. What were you saying, Ronan?
I was just saying this chapter, I mean, really every chapter, but this chapter in particular has made me really excited to see where it goes, because I feel like this is kind of where the story can really pick up. So far, it's felt a lot like introduction, a lot of build-up, which is necessary, and I've been here for it, but I feel like we can really pick up the pace now and start seeing a lot of different things introduced in a way that I'm really excited for.
Yeah. I think next chapter we get the scene that we're talking about where Maruo wakes up, has to be explained, has to have the situation kind of explained to him as far as what happened. I definitely think that there's still more conflict, you know, to tell. You know what I mean? Like it's not like
Mhm.
this is the last scene and then Maruo wakes up and then we're like filled in on the rest of the conflict later. It definitely could happen like that, but I definitely think that we get some Urara time to shine now that the knife has been, you know, taken out and she's in her form. So we'll see the conclusion of this probably next chapter, and then we'll get the Maruo scene where he wakes up, like what happened. They tell him, he's like, oh shit, I remember when this happened to Jotaro, blah 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 blah, just like what Ronan was saying. But then I think that really soon we go into 1010 origin too, and we get like some more like a 1010 back. Or did we already get a 10, or not 1010? But did we already get a 10 backstory at all? I don't think we really got anything. He just kind of
Not
showed
really,
up.
yeah.
He was weird. He fucking, you know, like we got a little bit of character of information about his character as far as what he's kind of been going through the last however long, with like kind of just being a fucking doormat for whoever the fuck he's working for. But I don't think we've actually gotten like any kind of black guttered, you know, flashback for him. And I think that that would be cool to get next if we are going to start picking up the pace afterward.
I really wonder because like he just looks like the Sobble, like that new Pokemon, that water chameleon Pokemon that just cries a lot. And I was just like, look at him.
Is that like a brand new, like from like the new shit? Because I wouldn't. I remember a
Yeah.
Sableye, but I don't remember whatever you're talking about.
Sobble is oh god, I can't read Roman. Generation 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think
But he just looks like a little Sobble. I was
Oh,
just like,
sure.
oh, look at him, little tadpole looking.
Yeah, I
thing.
can see like some Pokemon, you know, inspiration inside of his like yokai-ish form. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's like a little frog demon, like he's just a little tadpole, you know, like a little frog in a big pond, and he's
That'd be
just like,
tight.
ah, fuck,
That'd be tight.
I'm scared.
Yuji Kaku likes his like amphibious, you know what I mean, like almost like reptilian, like kind of character, you know, monsters and shit like that. I think it would be
That'd be
tight
cool.
if he was like a cool frog demon later, and we got some like tongue action. You know what I mean? Like
Tongue
inside of
action.
his fighting style, paws or whatever. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Dude,
That'd
he's
be
just like
dope.
yoink, wow.
Yeah.
It's like Asui kind of stuff.
Yeah, like some Greninja shit. You know what I'm saying? Like that'd be
mhm.
dope. That'd be dope.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm super
So-
excited for Ayashimon, man. I don't know if I have too much more to speak on for this chapter specifically, but
I personally
Yeah, same
don't.
here.
Yeah.
I think that like it's gonna be very interesting that like Urara is emboldened by Maruo and Ten's like blind faith in her. And I
Yeah.
think she's just not used to that kind of level of trust and confidence. Because
especially
even
not this early
Dopo's
even
like
too.
because even Dopo's like thing of like she was abandoned, she wasn't entrusted with anything, and she's like, oh, that hurt. Like,
Yeah. And then you have Maruo and Ten over here like, we don't care, she's great. That's older sis. Fuck you mean.
ride or die,
Right.
baby.
Yeah.
Even more than that, we got her. She's got our loyalty. Let's go.
Yeah, straight up. Straight up.
I wonder how Dopo's gonna try to save face. You know, he's blown his big power. Like the Amyo bureau's on their way. Like, how is he gonna? And he started a war straight up. Like already, he sent out his forces. I don't think he's gonna have enough time to hunt her down like that. I mean,
I think they're gonna
he might
square
use
up.
the-
I think he's still got shit up his sleeve. I don't think he
Yeah.
showed like
He still
near-
has that mirror guy.
I don't think he showed nearly enough of his power for
Mhm.
me to think that. And I know that Urara is like in her fucking like, you know, Super Saiyan mode right now and she's about to go crazy, but I think Dopo still got a lot more fucking gas in the tank, that's for sure. And I feel like we could get like a really cool clash in this next chapter
Ooh.
between, you know, final form Urara and a serious Dopo, which I think would be cool. I still think that this situation gets interrupted in some kind of way, whether Urara finds an opening and just grabs everyone and bounces as soon as she can. Maybe she does that instantly at the start of the next chapter. But I think it would be tight to get a little bit of a collision, and then maybe Onmyo Bureau dude shows up and distracts Dopo for some reason, and then she fucking grabs Maruo and fucking bounces with 10 or something like that. But,
Yeah, I mean, her
think
plan is to
she's-
dip one way or another, so
Right.
it's got to be. You know.
oh yeah, and they got to grab Hashihime too out the back of the car because
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, we can't.
On the way out, she has to take care of the one bald mirror guy because that's how they tracked her.
Oh shit.
She needs to take care of him,
Yeah.
or they're just gonna like find them later, and they're like, "Well, we don't have time to heal."
Yeah.
because we keep getting found.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Omnio Bureau shows up or something like that, then maybe that'll isolate that factor. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've got nothing.
Okay. But yeah, I think I'm good on Ayashimon.
I think so as well.
I agree.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and jump right into chapter 114 of Mission Yozakura Family. Decisive Battle of the Eldest Children.
Fire.
Yeah. Another just kind of slice of lifey, feel good, family development, relationship development kind of chapter. So yeah, that was always feel good.
Yeah, the dialogue on page 3 about how the grandparents are so old that, and they've been in the game for so long that random fond memories that they have might or that random fucking reminiscences, I think is how
reminiscences.
Yeah.
Like random fond memories they might bring up are probably highly classified.
It could start wars if anybody gets a hold of them.
That shit was so cool because it's even in the more slice of life chapters, shit like that makes you remember just how serious Gondaira is about this world. You know what I mean? They make sure that everything ties into this super spy shit as much as it can. The immersion is just off the charts. The immersion is there no matter what tone the series has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just really appreciate that about Yozakura Family because
they're in the letters you remember when I was slitting that guard's throat and his buddy caught me and he donkey kicked him in the back of his fucking dome? We were in some country, XX country, doing this operation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Somebody gets a hold of that letter, it's over.
It's over. It's you was doing what? Where?
You was
with
doing
who?
what? Where? When? Huh?
With whose donkey? Oh, no.
Remember when I had to seduce the ambassador of Chechnya because of your fuck up? Yeah, remember that? No, it's funny. But I think it's crazy that they had to that, because there's it's an errand shop, but and in addition to the reminiscence and stuff, I liked that Mitsumi was just hey, can you order 33 pounds of wolf's bane? Because that's what monk's hood is. It's an aconite plant. It's highly poisonous.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it grows. It's a perennial plant. It grows in a lot of places. It can grow in Iowa. I know a guy that has them as ornamental plants, and he's yeah, I put them behind other sharper shrubbery and plants with thorns so that dogs and children don't get into it.
That's hilarious how relevant
he organized
that is
his
for
garden
you.
around that, and I was like, good for you. And I was but why do you have that?
Cool.
That's cool.
That's a cool little bit of information. I definitely saw that Monk's Hood shit. I was Monk's Hood, Monk Shoed. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
I didn't know how to pronounce it
by
at
a lot
all.
of different names because it goes by aconite, wolf's bane, because people would use that to put it inside meat bait to kill off wolves. It's also known as mouse bane. It does a lot of shit.
That's cool. I love the sibling rivalry between Kyoichiro and Futaba in this chapter is so fucking amazing. Like I said last review, fucking the mangaka Hitsuji Gondaira always snaps on these two character pairings. You know what I mean? And the two eldest sibling theme is really good for this one. Because plus the fact that their biggest argument is over who remembers enough about the younger siblings or whatever, that makes all the sense in the world for the two oldest characters to argue about that. It's very organic and believable in that way. It feels like Gondaira considers literally every single factor when he's writing any scene. You know what I mean? He really lives in this world. You know what I mean?
I honestly, Go ahead.
Oh no, that was it. Go ahead.
Okay, I just think that this author in general is just really, really good at in a battle series, writing slice of life, slow, down to earth stories.
Yeah.
This doesn't say most mangaka aren't, but I feel it's very easy to fumble to the point where it comes off as boring or filler. Whereas with Mission Yozakura, we can go from action-packed, plot changing chapters 1 week, and then the next week it's slow. It's this character driven plot that takes place over the course of like a day, but it
Yeah.
feels like it makes sense, and it feels important. I care about seeing these characters fleshed out, and it's handled, I think, very very carefully and entertainingly, might I add. It's funny seeing Futaba and Kyoichiro go back and forth, and seeing
Yeah.
like Taiyo trying to keep them from like just going at it in the middle of wherever they're at.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And I love
And
that. Yeah, go ahead, Eagle.
on these scenes and chapters always feel so organic. Like that's
Yeah.
that's my favorite part about it. It's like they never feel overly injected or like just overly stagnating as far as the story goes.
Sure.
Like it makes total sense that they would need to like go to the mall to pick up these items. Like, okay, we're assassins. We need this poison. We got to deliver this letter. We got to do it personally by hand to this store. We're gonna kill two birds with one stone here. And obviously, like you said, it makes sense that these two characters together would definitely be going tit for tat.
There's always
getting annoyed with each other.
Yeah, like the connecting theme between the characters that are being focused on. Like there's such an organic and believable dynamic, between them. Whenever we get chapters like these that focuses on one sibling and another one and their relationship with each other. You know what I mean? And I love that last moment that we get where Kyoichiro tells Futaba that he's glad that she's the eldest daughter. That shit slaps so hard because they aren't really the kind of characters that would outright tell each other about their anxieties as eldest children and how the burden of looking after and protecting the younger siblings is. You know what I mean? But you can feel some serious unspoken bond shit in this chapter. And I love that shit, man. Like when you got like between the lines shit between two characters that we understand a great deal and like what their role in the story is, like any kind of between the lines shit like that is always going to slap.
And I love that this is now 2 chapters in a row of slap ass Kyoichiro moments with his siblings, like really heart to heart sentimental talking moments, like at the end of this chapter and at the end of last chapter with Nanao.
Yeah.
Just slaps super hard to like get, a further in-depth look to that sentimentality of a character like Kyoichiro, who is often kind of stoic, I guess, for the most part.
I think Koichiro suffers sometimes because he is like the classic like obsessed with his sister one note character sometimes. So it's really nice that they're really broadening and like backing away from just that.
Yeah.
I think it's good that like they started off really strong and then that like as the series has gone they've been like slowly reeling that back and just like touching on it every now and again, like that's about it, like through dialogue.
Well, and it's probably something that will culminate to a moment similar to these moments we're getting with the siblings between Kyoichiro and I was gonna say Mauro. Why am I blanking on the Taiyo,
yeah. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of names. It's a lot of series. It's gonna happen.
Between Kyoichiro and Taiyo, where he says, and maybe he says, I've noticed you like have been a lot less clingy with Mutsumi, these past weeks or months or whatever, and he's like, just maybe has a conversation with him about how through the things that have happened and the experiences they've been through, like he has started to trust him more.
Yes.
And have faith that he can protect Mutsumi and he doesn't need to be, the way he is anymore.
Right.
And I think that's showing a little bit now, maybe even without him saying it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not even noticing it yet,
And I love how we get like this secondhand development for the other siblings vicariously, like through the dialogue of the 2 eldest siblings who make like I was saying earlier, makes all the sense in the world that they have this information to give about these characters, because when you're building a family, you need to like switch up the way that you give information about these characters. You can't just every time you want to learn something about Shion and Kengo have a chapter that's focusing on them. In a chapter like this where the 2 eldest siblings are interacting with each other, one of the strongest points that links the 2 is how much they know about everyone under them that they helped raise. So us getting secondhand development for Kengo and Shinzo and Shion through this argument between Kyoichiro and Futaba is really creative. Like I just love the vibe. It like just always feels so perfect whenever anything is character driven inside of Yozakura family.
Yeah.
And Gondiver's really good at taking like the initial characterizations and like gimmicks of the characters that like we kind of like come to know them through. Like Kyoichiro is overprotective of Mutsumi to a really cringy degree, etc., etc. He's really good at taking those really simple character quirks and then expanding on them to give us deeper character writing later on through the experiences of any other character. Like there was that one scene in here where his overbearingness on Mutsumi is kind of thrown in his face again by Futaba in this very offhanded like panel where he's like, where is it?
16?
Is it 16?
Yeah, he's like, they're talking about like how Kengo couldn't handle the death of a cat.
Yeah, and he's like, he needs to learn through experience. You're always so overprotective. And then Futaba's like, that's rich coming from Mutsumi's stalker. You know what I mean? Like, it's comedy, but it's also just showing how well these characters know each other and how, like, all of those points of characterization can come back to influence later dialogue and later, you know, fleshing out of characters in either comedic or deeper ways. You know what I mean? Gondaira is really good at remembering all of the things about these characters because they feel so real. Like, they feel like they're actually modeled off of people that Gondaira knows in their life. You know what I mean? And that's one of the strongest vibes that Yozakura family gives me.
Yeah. And, like, these interactions really bring you into the family because, like, you can totally picture how the series of events went, even, like, through this kind of time jump at the end of the chapter. Like, oh, surprisingly, they're getting along. Like, they're talking the whole way home, like, chatting about whatever.
Yeah.
Having these moments. And then, like, it comes to a point later on where they're, like, busting out the snacks and fucking Kyoichiro's like, here, have a bite of mine. And she's like, I'm good. With no ill intent. And he's like,
Do it.
I said have a bite. It's delicious. And she's like, no, I'm good for real. And he's like, nah.
They're fighting about it. I love how obnoxious they are to each other because in my experience, I've seen a lot of siblings interact with each other. That's real. That's real.
Oh, yeah,
Especially
it
with
is.
older siblings.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
Just like one of my childhood friends. The older brother tried to sell me his younger brother for Dragon Ball Z cards.
Yeah, see? Yeah. And
He's like, I don't want him. You got him? Yeah, you can be an older brother. You can take him.
Yeah.
My sibling cats are in the back wrestling.
Right. Yeah, I feel it too. Like, I'm one of 6, you know what I mean? So, like, all of this, like, you know, Yozakura family stuff inside of, like, most of the siblings and their rankings in age, like, I resonate with all of that shit inside of my own household, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Just a certified slapper every time.
Who are you in the chain? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm the second son, or I'm the third son. So like I'm the youngest son, but I'm the
You're Nanao.
Yeah, I'm Nanao, but I'm not the youngest. I have a younger sister. And yeah, so I think I'm still Nanao. No, Nanao is just the youngest in general out of all.
And
of them.
Nanao is the youngest.
Yeah,
the youngest.
The youngest.
Nanao is the youngest. Oh
yeah, but I think I'm like, you know, yeah. So my youngest sister, me, first oldest sister, second oldest sister, third oldest sister, and then 2 older brothers.
I'm Tayo. I'm an only child.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Wait, Tayo's only an only child because he lost his whole family.
Yeah.
No.
I got my mom, so you know, but like,
yeah.
You know what's really interesting is like I didn't really realize this at first, but like having Nanao and now the Futaba Koichiro like heart-to-heart episodes back to back makes you realize that underneath that bucket, Nanao and Futaba look like identical.
Oh wow.
Like I just realized that like I was looking at their face and I was like, she looks like Nanao. And then I was like, oh, I see what they did right there.
Yeah.
The irony that they really look alike, but then the youngest is the biggest and then the oldest is the smallest, and I'm like,
oh wow.
That's funny. That's funny. Little visual irony, and I was like, that's great.
That's hilarious, bro.
I feel bad for those model kits. I understand that pain. Just
the model kit shit, bro. Like I had gotten like introduced to like model painting and construction when I was working at this one job that was in a call center, and like everyone's kind of lined up in their cubicles like down the rows or whatever, and my cubicle neighbor like very to the left of me like had this fucking elaborate Gundam figurine setup, you know what I mean? Like in his cubicle, like he had cold-blooded shit that had to be like 10 racks worth of fucking Gundam figures
Oh,
on
yeah.
his fucking shit. And he would tell me every day how fucking crazy the process is, how you have to be so careful when you're taking parts out of the fucking casings to not like over break the fucking like sticks and shit.
Yeah.
Because it's like connected by like shit that's perforated, and then you kind of like wiggle it out and have to like remove it or whatever, and you have to be so careful not to like over break anything or whatever. And I just remember getting a crash course on that, and I'm reading this chapter, and she's just like, huh, dink, and just like pulls the shit out, and I'm like, oh,
Ow!
I'm not even a collector, and that just hurt from sitting next to a collector for fucking 2 years at this job. Like, be careful with that shit, Futaba. God damn it. Yeah, I was like, be careful, motherfucker.
Real.
But yeah, beautiful chapter, man. Can't wait for the next one. Like, I'm happy to stay inside of this like two sibling pairing kind of storytelling for a while. I definitely want to get back to the overarching narrative with like the father and and the
the ancestors.
yeah, and the ancestors and shit. Like I definitely want to get back to that, but I am loving these slice of life character building chapters inside of the two sibling pairings, bro. Like this shit is slapping for me right now.
I wonder if Tayo is going to, when he's going to go through his like gold rank certification process.
Oh,
He's
sure.
definitely gotten stronger since he's gotten his silver.
He's silver
stuff.
now, right? Yeah.
He's silver right now, and they're talking about like, oh, we need to go get this stuff from the store, but we need at least 2 gold member to deliver this letter, right? So I was like, okay, it's a reminder that rank exists, and I'm kind of expecting it to happen maybe the next 3 chapters.
Fuck yeah, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's all I had for Yozakura.
Yeah.
Ronan, you got anything else for Yozakura?
Not really. I mean, I just like the small character interactions. I think they're very important to building up bigger scenes because, in general, I think a lot of people like to like gloss over the necessity of having chapters or having scenes where you just get to know these characters. Sometimes people want just go, action. It's like that's great sometimes, right?
Yes.
But only if you have the build up. Like if you don't, it's just cool art, right? And it's just basically cool art if you don't have a connection to these characters. So chapters like this are like stretches of the manga where we're getting to relate to these characters. We see how they view each other, and things like that is just, I think, really nice. And it's a good change of pace, and it makes me more excited to just see how or what's even going to go down in the next chapter. Because with Mission Yozakura, you never really know. It's kind of like it's a coin flip. All right, are we going to get in-depth like plot details? Are we going to be slice of life?
Right.
So it's kind of exciting to kind of have that guesswork for the next upcoming chapters.
That's a great
you
point.
definitely don't want to get into like monster of the week type scenario, and especially I feel like I've said before on the show, I feel like this is a series where it could be easy to fall into that, being that it literally is mission of the week.
Right. It works so well inside of a series like this.
So it's good to see, it swerves from that mission of the week, enemy of the week. Oh, we're fighting this spy or this assassin or this bombardier, saboteur, or whatever.
Yeah.
This person's trying to assassinate Mutsumi. Like all that is obviously different plot lines, but it can begin to feel a little bit redundant.
Sure.
So I think these swerves and stuff like this where we get these really wholesome character interactions, super fucking good.
Yeah, and going back to Ronan's point real quick before we close it out about how the necessity of taking breaks away from action and drastic pacing to kind of focus on your characters, and how Mission Yozakura Family kind of does that so well without the slowed down character driven chapters feeling like filler chapters. Is I feel like a lot of mangaka are scared to break up their momentum or their pacing with just raw character driven, almost slice of life kind of chapters like these. You know what I mean? And instead they just kind of try to bake that kind of writing into the story along with the pacing and momentum that they already have. And it works for a lot of mangaka, but a story like Mission Yozakura Family really makes you appreciate the times where a mangaka can just stop the momentum and go, let's focus on Tayo and Mutsumi. Let's focus on Nanao and Kyoichiro. Let's focus on Futaba and Kyoichiro. The overarching narrative isn't going anywhere. They're not going to fucking axe this shit for 3 weeks of fucking, character driven writing. You know what I mean? Like, let's slow this shit down and give some people some more wholesome family building content in a story about a literal family. You know what I mean? And I just love that about Yozakura. But
Definitely. That's all I had, though.
Yeah, I'm good too. Good shit.
Man.
All right, well, with that, I think we can go ahead and jump right into chapter 172 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Tokyo number 1, Colony part 12. Ronan, how did you feel about this chapter, man?
This chapter was a banger. I mean, this chapter went crazy. Now, on 2 levels. 1, I'm just a big fan of JJK, obviously. But 2, Megumi is my personal favorite character, right? So seeing him shine, seeing him put in work after a lot of slander of like, Megumi's trash, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He loses all his fights. It's good seeing him like just show why he's great, right? All in all, I think, I don't think it's very difficult to say this is probably his best fight in the series.
For sure.
It's the tactics, the mind games, the arsenal. I just like everything
thinking.
about. Exactly.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed a mind battle between Reggie and Megumi, because Reggie's no slouch in terms of his mental either. Like he was Megumi in my opinion was one of Reggie. Yeah, exactly. They were having a decent back and forth in terms of the mind games, right? Yeah. And I think this was a really good chapter all around. It expanded this fight in general, but specifically this chapter just expanded kind of our awareness of how Megumi fights, right? He always, especially after this, to me, this really shows a big development in his character, because before this, he would have relied on Mahoraga as this last resort, right?
Yeah, he would have threatened it 2-3 times before the end of the fucking conflict.
Exactly. He would be willing. He's like, damn, I'm in a tough position. I can't think of a way to win this fight. Let me make sure that no matter what, we'll both lose. Now, he always keeps something in the back pocket that he can completely control, whether that be domain expansion, he uses the gym to his advantage, whether that be hiding his divine dog in the back pocket, making him think. The crazy thing to me is he made Reggie think since the very beginning of the fight that he could not use divine dog. Like, he had that waiting the entire fight. And I'm like, wow, that's insane that he manipulated. He was just playing chess the entire time, always at least one step ahead. Right. And I think this was just a great chapter to show that Megumi is just all around progressed quite a bit from where he once was, fighting-wise and mentally.
Absolutely. This fight was incredible. I love how strong Reggie ended up being. It reminds me of because he was introduced as someone that everybody thought that Megumi was just going to dust instantly. Like, motherfuckers thought he was going to get slid like the chapter after he was fucking introduced. You know what I mean? So
goofy looking.
I'm me.
Look at it.
Yeah, I'm me, boy. I knew.
Yeah, nice.
I don't
nice.
expect much from you guys that look like that.
I definitely thought that he was, a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, it reminded me of
sure.
it reminded me of what I thought about like Battle Beast in Invincible. If you guys have seen like Invincible in that episode. In that episode where he's talking to like, the Daft Punk helmet, mafia boss or whatever in his fucking building, and then all of a sudden he just like summons these 3 henchmen out of an extra dimensional portal, and I was like, who the fuck is this lion-faced rando henchman number 3? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like what I thought like when I saw him, and he ended up being just like the most dominating force in the scene. You know what I mean?
He was so scary. He's so scary.
Yeah, like just a monster. And I just was not expecting that at all. So whenever I get that feeling inside of a series, I always just appreciate the shit out of that, because Reggie did not look all that strong, but he's no hoe. Tell you right now, this motherfucker is dead serious, and he was from start to finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Reggie was cocky, but like, he backed it up the entire time. I was like, he's onto something. Yeah. I do like I agree. Like, Ronan, after watching the episode of yours, like, Yuji is not a good person. Episode, you're like, one of his core things is that he will do whatever he wants, and he will like because of that, he will accept whatever consequences happen to him, which is why he was so ready to like throw out a Mahoraga whenever he was backed into a corner. And he's like, I'm just gonna accept the consequences of doing whatever I want to do. But like, since the Shibuya incident arc, he's become a lot more tactical. He plays a lot more chess.
You're talking about
like,
Megumi or Yuji?
Sorry, Megumi.
Yeah, because you said Yuji, and I was like, wait a minute, I feel like you're talking about Megumi.
I'm getting my wires crossed.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Just wanted to clear that up.
Exactly. Megumi, Yuji, yeah. It's
same
very
guy.
similar phonetically. Yeah. Two peas in a pod.
Right.
No. But like with Megumi, he was showing that tactical side a little more during the Fight Club infiltration bit, where I was like, all right, let's go. And I hope that like it goes on, because he is cold-blooded. He doesn't believe that like Reggie or the scorpion-haired gal or any of these other people are good people. He doesn't believe they're good people, so he's totally willing to just cut them down if that serves his purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that, because I think that's also stems from his like sorcerer training. You know,
Sure.
the idea that like the weak get devoured, you know, sentimentality doesn't have a place on the battlefield.
Right.
And I also get the feeling that like, because they use curse techniques which are influenced by negative emotions,
Yeah.
I think that there is like a social culture that cultivates kind of that negative thinking to enhance their powers, to cultivate those levels of techniques. Because even like Reggie at the end was like, all sorcerers are con artists. We're not truthful. We're not honest. We're not pure in any way.
You
like,
keep your
Yuji
trump card
is
in
an
your back
anomaly.
pocket as long as you can.
Yeah.
You lie as often as you can, and you get shit done as quickly as you can without having to, like, some sorcerers obviously lean into the aspect of the power system that strengthens your technique as you explain it to somebody. But like for someone
That's conning someone in and of itself, though.
Exactly.
Like both sides are. I'm going to manipulate you, because Toto's a good example. He told Hanami his technique, but kinda like he led him on to believe that it only worked in certain ways.
he told
in
half
order to make
truths.
him exactly.
And left out a lot of how his terse technique works, because when you're in that kind of situation where you know that it's a thing in the power system, and Hanami even said earlier in the fight during the exchange festival, like someone was like, oh, I think it was Maki was like, oh, you're gonna tell us how your technique works? That was nice of you. And Hanami was like, apparently it makes my technique stronger. So you know, like we got that scene with Hanami, and then fast forward to Toto's introduction to the fight with Boogie Woogie, and he goes out of his way to explain the technique. Naturally, Hanami would go, oh, he's probably doing the thing where you explain your technique and it strengthens it, but didn't realize that Toto was only using that aspect of the power system to lead Hanami into a false sense of security, because he wasn't telling the entire technique. He wasn't actually explaining exactly how Boogie Woogie works, because that's not the kind of technique he has where he can explain it and then it gets stronger. But how would Hanami know that? That's just the level of thinking that's required in these jujutsu battles, and that's something that's so reminiscent of Hunter x Hunter, and something that I just appreciate so much about the inspiration that you can feel inside of Jujutsu Kaisen, because it takes from its inspirations just enough, but makes sure that it's its own thing first and foremost. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
So you mentioned this earlier, but like Megumi was showing real tactical mindsets post Shibuya, especially with like Kurawara's technique. That technique is to this day just the most like I reread that chapter still like, okay, what was that technique again? Like I'm dead confused about that. But Megumi figures it out within the span of what we can assume to be a couple minutes. But I think this is something that's been expanded, but it's not new. Like even pre-Shibuya really getting into it, he's able to figure out Awasaka's technique in the span of a couple of minutes. He's like, he hit him a couple of times. He's like, nah, no way you're that tough. All right, let me figure out what this is. And then comes back, he's like, all right, Yuji, I'm gonna use your superhuman strength and speed and my versatility, and we're gonna get it done. And that makes me think there's two things, right? One, I like the parallel of Yuji facing somebody that's super earnest, being Higuruma, right? The earnesty kind of clashing, and that's the reason Yuji was able to get away essentially scot-free for his crimes, I guess you could say.
Sure.
Although, but Megami fights just a schemer, just like him, right? They're both fighting. They're not their opposites.
The other side of their coins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorcerers that are exactly like them, and I'm
Parallels.
interested. Yeah, of course. That's the best way I could put it. And I think it makes it very interesting, or I'm at least personally very interested to see how Yuji and Megami now can work together, because Megami is the best version he's ever been of himself.
Yeah.
Same for Yuji. So I'm curious of how you pair Yuji's strength with Megami's intelligence and just versatility with his technique. How strong are they? Like, what are they putting down as a dynamic duo?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just realized that Reggie is the perfect parallel because he came with minions and his
Mm-hmm.
And his
contractual
receipts work as
recreations are
Shikigami.
Shikigami.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude.
But
Yeah.
like, I was very deeply invested in this fight. I love it so much. The visual storytelling is really cool, and I like the like the first few pages. I like the kind of like breakdown that is reminiscent of like how Dr. Stone functions,
Sure.
in that they pay very close attention to what is the real world analogs represented in their series. They
Absolutely.
talk about like circulation and how to like minimize stress on the body by lowering your core, and like the actual weight of an elephant, the weight of a building.
Yeah.
And like, but I also like the visual storytelling touches of like Megumi's hair being completely flattened because of
The weight. Yeah.
And I was like,
Mhm.
and then it like the logical consistency through the fiction
Yes.
of like how Reggie's power worked, and like, because like I never thought about it when he was like, oh yeah, if I give it a command, it'll disappear shortly after. And I was like, you know what? I didn't see those knives or daikon or any of those things just laying around in the background.
Afterwards,
and like,
right?
Gege is so meticulous with detail, and
Yeah.
I just kind of overlooked it. And I was like, that tracks.
you
'Cause
could've-
I looked
you
back
could've
and I was
figured
like,
that out,
wait a
yeah.
second.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, that is cool. I thought the trick with the cars was genius. He's like, yeah, I left him in there just in case. Like,
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about the tie in the analog to like real world, things in regards to the G-force explanation of how much the body can withstand and whatnot. When you have a battle of wits kind of exchange like we're seeing in this fight between Megumi and Reggie, that kind of tie to reality really helps for that kind of situation, I want to say, because when you have
Yeah.
scientific concepts being explained to you to help give context to the phenomenon that's happening inside of the chapter that you're reading, inside of a power system that's already very nuanced and complicated, it really adds to that battle of wits vibe. And what I also appreciate about this particular battle of wits exchange between Megumi and Reggie is that it's so much on the wit side of things while also being a very physical confrontation at the same time. So Gege's achieved a really interesting balance in his action storytelling to where it can feel so witty and so cerebral, of a conflict while also being very physical at the same time. We're seeing just as much of Gege's profession in the area of choreography as we do pretty much anything else that he's good at that's being shown inside of this fight, where I feel like a lot of mangaka would focus on one or the other. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Gege just yeah, go ahead.
Masterful when it comes to fights. Like
Yeah.
it's both, right? And I think he does a very good job of contrasting. Like with Yuji and Higuruma, we get mainly physical, right? It's kind of like he reversed it so that we can get the best of both worlds. So there's some mental aspect where Yuji has to figure out he can get a retrial, right? But mainly it's a physical confrontation for an entire chapter where Yuji's just trying not to die, right?
Yeah.
And then in this, we get a large confrontation where Megami, for the most part, is playing a mental long game, but there is obviously some combatant. There's some physical fighting, especially towards the end, where we're
Literally just throwing hands.
Yeah, exactly, right. And Megami's like, damn, he kind of strong. Like
Yeah.
no wonder he was able to hold up my entire elephant.
Right.
One thing I want to harp on just real quick, because it kind of just occurred to me as I was scrolling through. So you know how like the Zenin are supposed to be this rival clan with the Gojo? Like it's kind of implied that the Zenin are or have been able to counter Gojo clan abilities in the past.
Yeah.
I find it just very interesting. Maybe this is a coincidence, maybe not. I find it very interesting that Megumi's domain seems to be the complete opposite of what Gojo's does, where once Reggie goes into it, he makes it very clear that it's complete nothingness. There's no resistance to his falling, there's no
Yeah.
buoyancy. And Gojo's is just infinite
Everything.
information. Yeah, it's just everything.
Yeah.
I just think this is a very interesting
Yo.
kind of dichotomy.
That's such a cool spot, dude.
That is.
Literally
it's like-
from nothingness inside of the void of the shadow abyss to
Yeah.
the everythingness that is infinite void.
Mhm.
That's
Oh.
so fucking sick.
It's interesting. Oh, that's wild because like Gojo was the one that trained him too. So
Right.
like, curse technique is often influenced by one's perception too, which is why it gets strengthened by like revealing. It's like, hey, this is ability. It's powerful in these ways, and so because the opponent is perceiving that, that becomes sort of true. So like,
Sure.
I think that like being under Gojo's wing may have influenced his like shadow ability and stuff to be like, hey, I'm thinking about what it holds. I'm thinking about what it doesn't hold, emptiness, etc.
Right. Wow. When you think about like Gojo as a character and how above normal his thought processing and just brain power is compared to the average person, like we get introspective, writing for like Gojo's mental in combat like all the time. But what about just like his regular thought webs when he's just having a conversation with someone? Do we really get in-depth writing as far as how his brain and his mind is processing the information that he gets? Because if you think about a character like Gojo who's taken the role of actually training these kids, when he's looking at Megumi, who seems to be like his star child, essentially under his wing, it's like, of course Gojo would look at his shadows and go, what is that abyss like? Like, what does it mean to be in your shadows as a 10 Shadows user, as a Zenin clan member? Like, and of course Gojo would probably put together that his shadow abyss is like the exact opposite of his ultimate curse technique. Like he could probably put that together himself. So who better to teach Megumi about his capabilities than someone who has the opposite side of that coin inside of their own capability?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And one thing that you saying that just like made something click in my head.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense, right? When you realize that like Six Eyes users are like they have like this godlike perception. And what better way to erase their ability to perceive things than to put them into complete darkness where there is no information to get anything?
Yes.
I just think it just applied that like, because Gojo, you were talking about like his thought process. Gojo probably just processes information on a completely different realm than normal people, right? We know that like, and Jaku's like, yeah, 1 second for Gojo's like 1 minute to regular people, right? So you want to eliminate that, put him in a place where there is no information to receive.
Be had,
and I that just, oh man, that gave me goosebumps just thinking about it. Just thinking about how,
yeah, because
I like that
Gojo
a
would
lot.
have to think about like what the counters to his own capabilities are. You know what I mean? Like as all powerful and overpowered Gojo is, and Gojo knows that he's still one of the brightest minds, if not the brightest mind in the series. So even though he is cocky and arrogant and, some can say he has a god complex, he is still a very critical thinker at the end of the day and has to think about his own shortcomings. However, minuscule they might be, he'd have to think about like in the off chance that someone does counter me, how would they do it? You know what I mean?
and we see that point blank in like the beginning of Shibuya, right? He's like, "Oh, you guys can touch me now? Nice. I'll just amplify my base stats and beat you up the regular way." And it's like it's such a simple strategy, but I feel like most overpowered characters would be like, "Oh my god, you just broke my insanely broken ability. How am I supposed to counter?" Gojo's just like, I mean, I'm still me, right? I'm still gonna fight you in 7 different other ways I have, even with all
I'm
this
still
other
Gojo.
ability.
I'm still the strongest.
I didn't even think that he amplified his stat, because I remember the domain amplification exposition. kind of explaining it as, and it's been a long time since I've read Shibuya Incident, so forgive me if I'm just
Yeah.
like completely way off base here. But I remember domain amplification being like a skin thick version of like your domain. So you're channeling the same kind of energy that you would for a domain, but you're only letting it travel as far as like a centimeter off of your skin instead of, you know, a whole bubble going into a full domain. And because you're creating a pseudo domain in that way, it allows that aura that's coding you to nullify the curse techniques of those you come in contact with. So because they're using domain amplification to get through his limitless, they don't have access to their curse techniques. So then Gojo goes, all right, I'm going to turn limitless off then. And then he turned limitless off. And then Hanami was like, oh, there's no more limitless? Well, here's my curse technique. And then Gojo was like, you blew it, bitch. And then fucking evaporated him. So I didn't remember it as him increasing his stats to get through the domain amplification. I remember him baiting the curse technique by turning his limitless off in response to domain amplification.
Yeah, no, that is how it goes down. I think I'm
Okay.
remembering where he has this little like he's talking, he's kind of like taunting Jogo and Hanami, and he's like, if you guys let me see. He's like, if you guys turn off domain application, I'll just increase the potency of my technique. Right? Hanami's like, okay, well you don't have it on now. Attacks, and then Gojo kind of just bullies him for that.
So he tried to take advantage of the moment after Gojo said that, thinking that he
Yep.
was telling the truth, and then turned his curse technique back on, and then in response he kind of like you would think that Hanami wouldn't fall for that trick a second time, because they totally just believed everything that fucking Todo said to them about their curse technique.
Yeah.
And then, you know, fucking got folded for it. You know what I mean? So you'd
You
think
might-
that Hanami would
Hanami
stop
seems
taking
very
things that his enemy says at
straightforward.
face value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also Gojo. Like I would imagine as an enemy, like why would he have to lie? Like
Yeah, straight
there's
up.
there's almost no strategical advantage to lie, at least from Hanami's perspective.
Right,
and then
right.
you know, all sorcerers are con artists, so it doesn't
Hey,
matter.
yeah,
Gojo's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
get that advantage either way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Dude, Jujutsu Kaisen just gives you so much to talk about, and especially because that we just went into like a tangent about like prior fights and the way that they worked mechanically before this. It just goes like more into like how consistent the storytelling has been around the power system to the point where we can go to previous fights and grab information to help us with our understanding of the current one. You know what I mean? And that's just like so cool that Gege is that consistent about power in their series.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I really like on page 16 when Megumi is going for the slash and then pivots his own body to like kind of like have the sword behind him and like whip around.
Yeah.
And it seems familiar to me. I don't know why. I wonder if people like I'm probably gonna see a parallel somewhere on Twitter. They're like, "Oh yeah, his stance reminds me of like Toji or Maki
Sure.
or
Yeah.
something like that." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, he's picking up things from other people and like, really being his like father's son."
Yeah, yeah,
Because
you can
the way
definitely feel more Toji inside of Megumi and Maki as the storytelling continues, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And his
I
fighting
just
style in this page that you just brought up, now that you like focused on it on 16, his fighting style reminds me a lot of like wuxia, Chinese, you know, almost fencing swordsmanship, right? Because it does feel like the movements are very fluid. Like you go over into Japan and into like samurai, you know, bato jutsu, kenjutsu, iaido, etc. All of the movements are very strict and they're very, you know, segment oriented. You know what I mean? From top to bottom, make sure it's strong, step into it. From left to right, you know, you can follow the line work and it's all very linear and straight. But then you go over into China and their, you know, fighting styles are a lot more fluid, you know, in direct contrast to Japanese
rotation.
swordsmanship. It's about rotation, it's about momentum, it's about weight, it's about positioning, and it's about weight distribution. Everything in martial arts is about weight distribution, but still, inside of this particular exchange on 16, it feels like Megumi is doing a more Chinese style of swordsmanship because he sees the Reggie hand coming in. he fucking meets it with the sword to stop the momentum, and then like overpowers the weight by bringing his like wrist down to like, you know, bring Reggie's arm down, and then he fucking pivots on his back foot and then swings the fucking sword behind him and upward to try
He's
to get a
aiming for a
slash from his blind
stab.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going
No,
for the
he-
stab because you see that part where like he nicks Reggie's face.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a stab, it was like an upward slash from behind his back. Like you can follow the motion and
Yeah.
like, you know, the fucking follow through line in the illustration. And he literally just like bent his arm down and then whipped around and tried to give him the uppercut slash from behind the back. And that's just like, so that just screams wuxia to me.
Love it.
Yeah.
Especially with like the ring on the handle
Right.
built into it. I was just like, yeah. 'Cause they'll do that thing where they hook their thumb into it and just like whip it.
Yeah.
And it feels like Megumi is using sort of like centrifugal force to kind of make up for his lack of like brute force ability, because he isn't Maki, right?
Yeah.
Like his weapon is his brain.
And when you
It's just
lack
like,
that kind of brute power, you need to use your enemy's momentum and weight against them in close quarters, and he knows that. And that's some kind of like between the lines consideration. It's like some between the lines shit that Gege had considered, I know, when you know, crafting this or composing this chapter and its choreography and whatnot, because Gege is just like that in their world, you know what I mean?
And that's
insanely
something
well storyboarded.
Yeah.
I always enjoy when the fights are reflective of the characters' like mental state or just who they are.
Yes.
Gege does it really well. And you can any major fight in the series, you can look at like how they're fighting. You can glean their mental state. You can glean what type of person they are. You can glean a
Yes.
lot of things. You remove the dialogue from like from a bunch of fights in the series, you can be like, oh, this character is typically very sure of themselves. This
Yes.
character is this character is that.
You can feel
And I
so
think-
much of their personality in just the
Exactly.
illustration. Yeah.
And I think it's very appropriate that somebody like Megumi, who has liquid shadows as his kind of ability, being fluid with his motions and never really ever taking the time to stop and let his opponents. Almost it seems he's never letting his opponents take a second to stop and think the way he's stopping and thinking.
Yes.
It's very. I think it's very appropriate. And the one time he does get like quote unquote caught off guard, where he's forced to stop. Divine Dog is in the back pocket, and it's been
Yes.
waiting for this moment.
That's what makes Megumi such an interesting fighter, just to dovetail off of what you were saying about how he uses his techniques to apply pressure on the enemy to not give them a moment to think the way that he does. But it just fits so beautifully into his fighting style because you use the Shikigami to apply that pressure while you sit in the background and think. You know what I mean? You can have, you know, rabbit escape going while the frogs are going, while New Way is smacking you in the back of the head, and you're formulating the next 3, 4, 5 steps of the plan. You know what I mean? And the enemy just doesn't get to do that because they have to deal with totality, and they have to deal with New Way, and they have to deal with the frogs in tandem, back to back to back to back. It's just such a fire fighting style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is just so versatile, and it allows Megumi to just cook, you know what I mean, in the background to develop these strategies that we love to see, and it's just master class.
I mean,
I'm not-
even 12 and 13, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to win on a straight fist fight. I'm going to try to choke you out while you're underwater. Just like, I'm going to seal your abilities. I'm going to seal your abilities. I'm going to seal your oxygen. You can't, like, being underwater physically hinders you, so you won't be able to peel me off. You have to undo your contractual ability just to get out of it initially, and even then you'll be at a disadvantage. And it's just like, man, that's layers.
Yeah, man.
Like,
It's levels
and-
to this shit.
And it works.
Onion.
It works again too because after you use a domain expansion, your technique is temporarily neutralized. So him going for this close quarters combat, like choking him out thing, acts as like, hey, if I can get him while he's in the water, I got him. But if not, I'm giving myself the time to let my technique regenerate, and now we can fight. And now I can have Divine Dog in the back. Well, you're thinking I'm gonna send any other Shikigami out. You think I don't know, whatever. I
body
just
block
have
with a rabbit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so you can't. That's right. I had completely forgotten about that aspect of domain expansion, is that you don't have access to your technique shortly after you dispel it. So I was thinking that Cone totality was just always cooking outside the domain, like just well, no, I guess not outside the domain because it's not a bubble, but like I thought it was just like off to the side, Reggie thinking that he had defeated it by throwing knives at it, and then Megumi just gave it the command to play dead in the background or something. But I also thought that it was just outside of the situation, like Kon was still active as he originally expanded, and then after, you know, the domain collapses, Kon is still just there, just by default, because like he was just grandfathered in to the situation and he didn't need to reconjure it. You know, but that doesn't make sense though, because after the domain dispels, you just don't have access to your curse technique. So Kon would have had to have been dispelled at that time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Megumi gives him the impression early on in the fight that he took Divine Dog back into the shadows to let it like recuperate from getting stabbed.
Oh,
and I'm pretty sure
because otherwise, why would Reggie
yeah.
think that he's not going to summon Kon? Like, what's the logic behind that?
He thought he
had killed it.
Killed or
yeah, he thought he.
Oh, sure.
And it's also his strongest Shikigami, so why wouldn't he bring it out? If he didn't kill it, why wouldn't he bring it out all this time through all of this, like, pretty, you know, life-threatening conflict, right? I would personally think, hey, he hasn't brought out his strongest Shikigami when he's about to die several times.
You probably don't got it.
Yeah, he just doesn't have it right now. And I think that's, like, time after time, he's just like, it's funny because you would think that a domain expansion is the last thing somebody has, right? That's it. But Megumi's just like, yeah, nah, not really.
I've already had to battle post domain with my technique like once already, so it's like, because he had to have that exchange with Toji right after Dagon, and he was using Rapid Escape and the frogs during that.
It is actually kind of an interesting tidbit. Maybe that did kind of skew him to think, okay, domains are good and all, but they're not always going to end the fight. So what's my post domain strategy looking like, just in case?
And like an enemy like Toji is like the perfect like litmus test for how capable you are post domain with your technique. So coming out of the fucking Toji exchange after Dagon probably gave him all the information that he needed to formulate a post domain strategy. It's like, well, if I was effective against fucking Toji, or maybe not Toji as far as like our understanding of, because I don't think that Megumi like had the same like level of understanding of who he was fighting as we did at the time. You know what I mean? But just like in general, like if my techniques can keep me alive after a domain against an opponent like this, then I have post domain strategies moving forward just in general.
He didn't know who Toji was, but he was like, this is 3-fingered Sukuna level. This guy just eviscerated Dagon. Like I can't say he's he may not be able to put full respect on Toji's name, but he definitely did understand after getting grabbed out of the building. He's like, oh, so he's real. Like this is not an average guy. Like I cannot.
As soon as he got yanked out of the building, there he did have like a little bit of internal monologue, I believe. Like, yo,
wait a minute, I'm all the way over here right now, and I don't feel no cursed energy coming from this dude. Oh no, he's a problem.
Oh no, he's worse than Maki. I don't like this.
Yeah, straight up.
Maki beats the crap out of him.
He watched him yank Yu-Un out of Maki's hand inside of the domain, so he already knew that this motherfucker was serious.
And somebody did literally say like he's an upgraded version of Maki. I believe that was Megumi possibly.
He was like he's Maki but fully realized. So he
understood
like how dangerous this character was.
And Playful Cloud is an amplifier.
So
like it's already like Maki multiplied through Playful Cloud. And Toji's just like, nah, yoink.
Yep, let's put my multiplier up.
Now I'm multiplied. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And he did yoink that shit too.
Yeah, he fucking lifted her off her fucking feet, grabbing that shit out of her. I think he like picked her up and set her back down at a different point, and then snatched that shit out of her hands.
Yeah,
so
he was like, I lost in a strength battle. Like, pretty badly too. Like he didn't just like taking a toy away from a kid. He was like, I'll take that. Thanks. Now time to go beat up this curse.
It took 4 of y'all to
lose to like y'all weren't even winning.
He said, "Give me my shit back." Fuck is you talking about? Oh, man, dude, that shit when he said, oh man,
Yeah, shit was
Reggie's
drastic as
messed
fuck.
up though. He's missing
Yeah.
like a good chunk of his collarbone.
dude. And when
everything.
he fucking in the bottom left panel of page 18, his shit is like hanging. Like,
Yeah,
his
bro.
shit is
Shoulders.
done
Yeah.
for.
You can really see the damage at the bottom left of 18 because, like, honestly, like, it's drastic at the top of 18 too, but like, you can't really feel the depth of damage until that fucking panel with Cone pitch black next to him. Like, you can see his shit is cleaved open. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, his shit is definitely hanging, and then obviously all of the fucking blood hemorrhaging in the last panel lets you know that he's pretty much done with all of his living, which is fire because it's like, man, I feel like this aspect of like utilitarian stances in main protagonists is kind of missing or has been missing in Shonen. Shonen storytelling loves to give you, at least inside of the main squad, a very altruistic kind of outlook. And
Don't kill.
don't
that type of
kill.
thing.
You know what I mean? If you can see the good in someone, you know what I mean? Like, don't let them die. Like, boom, boom, bap. You know what I mean? We see that all the time. But in a story like Jujutsu Kaisen, it just doesn't work. And Gege is very cognizant of that fact and has written the story around utilitarian outlooks, which I feel like is just so fresh inside of shonen storytelling.
I love Megumi's sort of like selfish amorality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it fits so well because like I think that he is effectively the poster child of what does Jujutsu society offer,
Yeah.
right? He's like, what kind of people does this society produce? What kind of citizens do they produce? And it's just like dudes like him or Mei or like all these other like fair or like the principal, right?
Yeah.
Fairly corrupt people who are just like, well,
Talk about the Kyoto principle, Gakuganji.
Yeah, Gakuganji, yeah, exactly. Or it's just like
Yaga was best boy.
so
You can't lump him in that.
Dude,
Yeah.
Yaga was an anomaly. He had to
Yeah,
be.
and exactly. Those are not like Yuji is weird. He's weird as a sorcerer. Like he's not what you would expect, right?
Right.
It's kind of I like you said, the amorality aspect of Megami, and I think I've noticed that all strong characters in this series, barring like Yuji, all these super strong top tiers have a very similar I do what I do because there's no I mean there is sometimes a higher calling in the sense that this is their motivation, but they don't try to justify it with anybody. Like Megumi's like, yeah, this is what I think is the case. I genuinely don't care if in the like objectively this is right. I'm going to act as if it is, and if you're gonna stand in the way, catch his hands, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I just think my fault. Just real quick. I just think that like in general, these high level characters tend to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like his classic line. He's like, I'll save who I want to save. I don't care if it's fair. I'm not a hero. I'm a Jujutsu sorcerer.
Yes.
You can perfectly inverse that and say, I'll kill who I want to kill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's fair.
Yeah.
I'm a Jujutsu
curse.
sorcerer, not a hero.
Sure. I mean,
You can literally inverse.
I was thinking of
like,
Mahito when you said that, and that's why I like tried to finish your sentence by saying curse instead of
I was just thinking
Jujutsu
about
sorcerer.
Megumi as a whole because like this is such a centric thing for him, and I was like, yeah, no, this makes sense.
But
like,
that was Mahito's stance, though. At the end of Shibuya, he was like,
it's
"Look,
just
man,
his nature.
I justified the reason I do my things the way you justify the way you do your things. What makes us different? Your idea of like how evil it is to kill a living thing, I don't fucking share that and never had. So like, is that really the deciding factor? Who gets to decide that? You know what I mean? And it was just and why?
And besides that, society, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and it's like it's very interesting because they literally are just man. I could get we could have a whole hour discussion on why Mahito and Yuji is just a great dynamic, but like I think that Yuji just because most protagonists would be like, oh, I have this moral reason as to why I'm right, but Yuji's just like, you know what, you were spitting, Mahito, like you're right, like you know, you kill humans the same way I kill curses, right? And I save people because that's what I think is right. So this battle is not for like a moral like, you know, who is right. It's about whose truth is going to live on. And whoever stronger is. My truth is going to live on because I'm stronger than you.
The winner's right history.
Exactly. It's like, you know, I'm right because I'm the only one that gets to talk about our morality past this point. You're not, right? You're not here. And it's just, And I love that the fact that like it kind of takes this your typical like shonen how the fight will go. Take like Pain versus Naruto or something where Naruto wins the ideological battle as well, right? He proves
Yes.
Pain wrong. Yuji's not into that. He's like, you know what? I can't, right? I don't have a reason as to why you're wrong. I'm just gonna beat you up and I'm going to be right from this point forward. And I
Exactly.
really like that. And I think Megami shares that, and he has shared that for a long time. He's understood. I mean, these moral debates are irrelevant when one, you know, if I win, if I beat you, then all things considered, I'm the one who's correct.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's not a matter of good and evil. It's just clashing philosophies. You know what I mean? Like people who had their own goals and their own outlooks and their own ideas of what they wanted to accomplish that just so happened to come in contact with each other. And when they did, obviously you have to duke it out because I want to continue, you know, to flesh out my ideology and leave my stamp on the world in the way that I think I need to. And you are doing the same thing. But it's not a good versus evil kind of thing because everyone kind of sucks here. If you really want to go back into the fucking history books and go through all of the things that these characters have done and said, there's going to be times where you either agree or you disagree. But that's what makes the story so cool is that the characters are so nuanced. You know what I mean? You have ideological clashes happening over here with such a moral ambiguity blanket over all of it where everything feels so blurred. And that's another thing that I love about Jujutsu Kaisen is that it doesn't give you that sense of this is how you should feel about this situation.
Exactly.
It's up to interpretation based on whether or not you resonate with these philosophies. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times the winner comes out on top and it is a protagonist, but do they always feel accomplished afterwards? Like, no, they probably had to do something that was really hard on them psychologically during the fight that leaves them feeling dirty even after they win. You know what I mean?
Yuji's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Every like he fights just Esso versus Kechizu. He's like, dude, I won, but like that's not what I want to do. And one thing really quickly to harp on the Mahito and Yuji thing,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say Gege was planning the IMU scene since like their first conflict, because I don't like pretending that these manga are like all no. Sometimes they happen to really align these things. But
Yeah.
either way, I think it's very fitting that we do get a moment with Yuji in like chapter 27 where it's this inner monologue where he says something to the effect of like, the words that came out of my mouth next were like the most true things I'd ever said in my life. And that's when he says, I'm going to kill you to Mahito.
Yeah.
And that sort of implies that at the end of the day, you can put on airs of morality. You're a good person. You're a bad person. But Yuji, at least at his core, wanted to kill the thing that messed up his way of living and what he thought was good. The same way Mahito does. There was no at the core of the issue. There was no moral reason. It was, you've harmed me, so I'm going to eliminate you so you can't do it anymore. And I just find that really interesting. And I think Yuji coming to terms with it consciously in Shibuya, and this being a concurrent theme of like what Jujutsu sorcerers are, of this like, I mean, and it makes sense. If cursed energy is a power system based off negative emotions, it would be a little strange if there were these like nice super like
altruistic, super wholesome, like it's okay, everything is gonna be fine all the time kind of characters.
Yeah, those guys got weeded out early, okay? All that's left is the gross roaches left, okay? The nasty
Look at like
ones.
a Miwa. Look at like a Miwa. She's super nice. What is she? A grade 3 sorcerer or something?
Like she's kind of a scrub.
She's cool. I like Miwa, but she's just not strong, and you can tell why. Yuta, for example, has, as far as we know, the most curse energy in the verse. At least it's kind of implied that he just has this absurd amount. Right. And guess what? From very early on, he's clearly like just has negative emotions of himself and
hates himself.
He hates himself, right? He needs his friends to reaffirm his existence. And in like volume 0, he's like, I noticed this because I was doing a reread recently, and he gets mad at Geto pulling up. Not when he says, I'm going to kill every non-sorcerer. He gets mad when he says, I'm going to, when he makes fun of Maki, essentially. And I'm like, that's really twisted. That's a really twisted thing, because this man just said before you, I'm going to commit mass genocide, and you didn't bat an eye.
Yes.
But when he said Maki is basically worthless, you were like, oh, so we're about to fight then. Like, we gotta see each other. Like, yeah. And I just find that very interesting, because that's a very twisted thing to think, and it's just played so straight. Like, most manga, I think if that were to happen, you would get a lot of like, oh my god, this was such a dark thought. But it's just played as this is how it is. This
because
is it.
Gege did such a good job of creating a world that kind of shit makes sense in. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like right away you can feel the vibe. And this is going back into what Mello was saying a couple moments ago about how all the people that have that like Shiki Eden Zero, Asta Black Clover kind of outlook and mentality have all been weeded out. That kind of thinking doesn't get you very far in the Jujutsu world. You can't just shonen protagonist and will your way out of all of these situations with your altruistic outlooks. You know what I mean? It's almost like a kind of Darwinism that separates people by their emotional intelligence. You know what I mean? And and how much of a realist you are. If you are a utilitarian and you understand that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and you can't save everyone, you're probably going to make it a lot farther than the Asta and Shiki types that want everyone to live, that want to save everyone. Those people, got their blind spot taken advantage of while they were having their altruistic monologue internally and got fucking stabbed through the fucking back or some shit because they were trying too hard to be a Shiki. You know what I mean? And I just love that inside of Jujutsu Kaisen, that we have that kind of vibe in a story. And it doesn't matter what kind of fucking chapter that you have. No matter what chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen comes out, you're guaranteed to respect it for either how philosophical it is, how scientific it is. It can be all of these things at once while also being very hype and action driven. Some people that you can root for in combat, like, oh my god, this choreography is going crazy. But no matter what kind of chapter it is, at the end of the day, it's thought provoking. You come away from Jujutsu Kaisen chapters thinking very deeply about morality and other things. You know what I mean? It gives you so much more, I feel like, than a lot of other shonen can offer.
And it gives it in a quick. It's like a lot of other series that do things like this take so long to do it. It's a lot of to me sometimes, right? It can come off as very preachy, as like this is simply the way the world works and this is why. And rather than showing us that this is the way it works, we're then told that it's the way that it works. Whereas I feel like Jujutsu Kaisen kind of briefly tells you, yeah, assert your own truth as the truth or die, and then it shows you what happens when you don't. It shows you the types of characters that do just think they are right and then move in the world as such. And I think it does it in a way that, like, it's very thought provoking if you're willing to look into it, but it's also I think always hype enough and interesting enough to where if you're just trying to read a cool manga with cool fight scenes, it's got that for you too. And that's something I think a lot of manga sometimes they kind of trade off. It's an either or. It's that you get a thought provoking or you get hype. To me, I feel like Jujutsu Kaisen able to do it seamlessly in both. Right, I'm just very impressed by that.
Gege's achieved like a perfect balance of all of these concepts and themes, and it's really impressive to see that.
The effort's definitely paid off.
Yeah. Sure.
So I have a question for you guys about the kind of the ending of this chapter. So first part is, do you think Reggie's like officially dead, like he's gone? Or do you think we may get like Megami communicating with him, seeing things about that? Or do you think this is kind of like the conclusion to their little mini arc?
I think he's dead as fuck, but we might get a scene of his final words, like as he's bleeding out to Megumi. I could totally see that. But before you said anything, I totally thought he was just dead as hell. Yeah, and that was just it. Yeah,
I think he's gonna have his final words. Like, especially because like it's kind of a core theme of the series. I think Reggie has earned at least a point of like saying his things. Like, sorcerers are all con artists, and he might try to say something in the end, like expressing his own personal regrets, because that's even when people die, they still want to share something. Like Nanami, when he was dying, he's like, Yuji, don't be like me. Like whether that was being a cold-blooded sorcerer or a sorcerer with too much heart, we're not entirely sure. But like, I I kind of want to see Reggie possibly try to say something as his last words, and then Megumi just cold-blooded interrupting him and killing him.
Oh, so that it doesn't create like a fucking secondhand
A
like
curse.
post-mortem
Yeah.
curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, none of that, sir.
Yeah, like
not-
sorry,
that
I
would-
want to hear you out because I respect you after our confrontation, but I can't have you haunting
Yeah.
me. Rah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would
He's
be
like-
so wild.
That would
I
be
thought that's
raw.
That's my prediction.
Oh, I'd be
Because
so
like
cool.
Megumi doesn't care for people. Like he doesn't really.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah,
he
he's like,
borrows
yeah.
his sister's morality mostly.
Yeah, he's like, damn, you really just tried to kill me for like a while, so I don't know why I'm gonna hear out your final words. Bye.
type shit.
yeah.
Yeah. You can either get
So-
like compassionate Megumi or like ruthless, cold-blooded Megumi, and it fits in both circumstances whenever it's used, and I love that.
Yeah. Because
I think
you
that-
can definitely say that I think like Megumi's been nice to people that aren't necessarily would deem good. Like Remy, for example. I didn't necessarily think he was gonna kill her outright, but I think it'd be completely justified for him to be like, bye, like just use
Yeah.
Divine Dog, take her out real quick. But he didn't. He was more like viscerally disgusted at who she was
Right.
at her core, rather than like deciding to take her out.
He
So
was
you can get
disgust-
either one.
He was disgusted with like her moral weakness. He's like, "Oh, you're clinging on to the words of people that are obviously lying to you just because you need it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That shit's weak.
Yeah.
If I see you again, I'm killing you. Like, this is my only mercy to you. Like, that's it."
Eagle, what do you think?
yeah.
What do you think for your answer to Ronan's question?
I was saying, I think he's dead based on the stagger splat.
And just the raw damage you see on the bottom of 18.
He's already meat at
He's
this
like-
point. Yeah.
He was waiting until I completely dismissed the dog. A
Yeah.
sorcerer's nothing but a con artist. Stagger splat.
Falls on.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, dude, the damage looks like it's like heart level. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? At the bottom of 18. So
He's
he might not have
hammered.
anything to
It's
say,
on the
like
left side.
Yeah,
physically.
this kind of
Yeah.
injury is like you bleed out in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even.
So-
Because, I mean, you can get, like, if you just slice your aorta,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You bleed out in like 7
took more than
seconds.
the aorta.
This is instant death levels of damage. I just want to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
also. The fact
Yeah.
that he was able to say sorcerers are nothing but con artists is incredible to me. 'Cause,
Yeah, it's
like,
already impressive.
Yeah.
My
So-
prediction relies on manga logic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
the
yeah, we
second-
definitely, Luffy gets his chest blown out and fucking survives, like we've
Oh,
seen
yeah,
some
this ain't
injuries
that
in
kind of
manga,
story,
but This
though.
ain't that kind of manga, though. You know what I'm saying?
What were you
No, I
trying
mean,
to
he's
say
not
though,
gonna
Ronan?
survive.
You were trying to get in there again?
No, I was just gonna say the second part of the question is now that Megumi's little like conflict with Reggie is concluded, what do you think, or who do you think we're focusing on next? Because I think that's a pretty interesting discussion because
Yeah.
we have quite a few characters that I'm very interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing I think it's Kashimo.
Yeah, the angel
lightning-
one, right?
That's
Yeah.
That's literally
Is
just
that
Angel,
Kashimo?
actually. Angel
Yeah.
Kurosu, I think is the
Yeah.
is the name.
Ka-
Yeah.
Ka-
Kashimo
Kashima's
is the
the
one
one-
that blew that motherfucker's
yeah.
chest in, and then you got the
Yeah.
panel of her looking through it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's got
and
like
her-
the little Van Graph rod kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. I think Hikari
Um,
said he's going to fight him. So
Right.
I'm interested in that. I also want to see Yuta again, to be honest. There's just a lot of different options, I feel like.
I think that since we've spent so much time on Megumi and Yuji, that we'll be going into storytelling revolving around people not included in the main cast at all. Like, I think that we'll just switch perspectives to, other Culling game members that we have gotten a name card for, but that just aren't a part of the main protagonist team, just to kind of flesh out the world outside the window of
Yeah.
our main team. I think that would be really cool to just see like unrelated to main protagonist conflicts inside of the colony. I think that would
Yeah.
be tight to get a chapter or two
dope.
of like maybe characters that are going to be a little bit more relevant later on, but just not necessarily entangled with the main cast yet.
I think that like Panda and Hikari are probably up next if we're focusing on the team. Otherwise, I think we might zoom out and go to Kenjaku
Ooh, yeah, that'd be tight.
because I have no
Kenjaku's
idea
just
what.
been scheming.
Just chilling,
Dude,
cooking in the
he-
background,
this has been like all like dancing in the palm of his hand
yeah.
because he's talking to like the Chinese ambassadors and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, let's ready some nukes, let's go." Like, what?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Where did you say where you thought it was going, Ronan?
So I don't necessarily have a place where I think it's going.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in seeing Yuta because so far we've seen like close battles. We've seen battles of like, Megami and Reggie were fairly even throughout their fight. Yuji was actually on the back foot against Higuruma. I want to see like how Gege like shows us just a one-sided, just kind of like stomp in any direction, right? Because obviously we've seen that with characters like Toji, we see it with Gojo. I really want to see what Yuta looks like just bullying a character.
Yes,
Instead of like trying to not kill Yuji.
Yeah, because like with Yuji, it's like he was obviously dominant, but it's like he can't do too much damage to him. Reverse curse technique is only so potent, so he's kind of like, okay, let me stab you. Yeah, let me stab you and make sure I'm not like just ripping you apart, right? He had Rika hold him nice and like still, just making sure he doesn't. I'm trying to see what a Yuta that's just like, I gotta rack up points somehow.
Yeah, just evaporating other players. Yeah. Oh, that would be so sick. Let's go.
If we do switch to Yuta, that's what we're gonna see. Like people trying to sneak it. He's gonna come in there. People trying to sneak attack him. He said, "Okay, that's 30 points real quick. Let's go."
No, he's gonna be running through the streets like KOing people, and there's gonna be like someone who's like drawing a beat on him, and then Rika just grabs their head from behind, and just
pops their shit. Yeah, no, you want to know what, Ronan? I 100% agree with you. I think that is the next thing. Maybe not the next thing we have to see, but the next Yuta related storytelling has got to be him showing the readers why he was compared to Gojo in the first place. Not just in the sense of him beating Yuji, because Yuji lacks the experience for that to really be super significant despite his strength that we've seen so far, but like just Yuta going out there and just not holding back in any regard and literally just deleting people, I think is like going to be really important for his character in the main story.
Imagine a line where like Rika like crushes somebody's like, can you not get blood on me or something? Like he's just like, because obviously he talks to Rika, like Rika seems to have some sentience in this as well. So it'd be wild if he just like, don't make such a mess or something like that. Like, oh man, that'd be so crazy.
I would love it. I need to see it now.
That would be so dope.
Fucking beautiful.
Is it next week already?
Right. That's about all I had for JJK though, man. Like, what a fucking amazing chapter to have Ronan here for. And like, we got a chunky ass conversation out of that. Like, beautiful discussion, you guys.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, well with that, I think we can go ahead and move into Chapter 226 of Dr. Stone, Giant Step.
Fuego
ass chapter, man.
Fuego. This chapter did a good job of explaining the Ryusui situation, right? Because I remember last review, I was like, how do we feel about this Ryusui situation? This kind of, I think I was leaning more towards the idea that it kind of felt ham-fisted. You know what I mean? And that it was just like, oh, okay, well, we got to find a way to get him, to go because he wanted to so bad, and just felt like it kind of took away from, the storytelling surrounding Ryusui's realization that Stanley had to go instead of him is basically like what my point was last review or whatever. But without having an idea of how quickly or slowly time is moving, the pacing in that last chapter just made the situation feel, so random and like so quick to me. But now that we know that significant time had passed in between the circuit board malfunction and Ryusui coming up in the fourth piece, like I'm loving the addition of Ryusui here now that we have kind of gotten that explanation. It feels so much better now to me than it did before.
Yeah. I'm really glad that they confirmed my idea that there was like a somewhat significant lapse in time, because they were just like, hey, we still haven't sent this up, and
I think you did even say that last week too. Yeah, that's right.
They're like, we managed to hear your predicament, so we figured out what piece you needed. We had backups of pretty much everything because this thing could have blown up. We need to keep building more rockets.
Did anybody notice that oh, sorry, real quick, I just wanted to throw this out here because I'm looking at a panel right now and I literally just got reminded. But did anybody notice that Senku does not have his markings?
Yeah, he doesn't. True.
I didn't see that until you said that.
I didn't notice it before either, but I got reminded of that in our Discord like right after the last episode, and they were like, I can't believe you didn't notice this, and I was like, me neither. You know what I mean? So I was like, wanted to make sure that I brought it up this time, because I remember at the in the Treasure Island arc, I don't remember when exactly, but I know it was Treasure Island. There was like a moment where they had been petrified again, and because a significant amount of time hadn't passed between them being petrified and them being depetrified, that erosion didn't set in to create those markings. You know what I mean? Like that was like a one of the realizations that they had, you know what I mean, is because, oh, you were petrified again, but because you were depetrified so quickly, you don't have the markings anymore. But then they decided that they were going to continue to draw the same markings on them until they defeated Y-Man as like a, you know, a morale thing, you know what I mean, like to keep spirits high until you know the foe had been vanquished or whatever. And it was really cool, you know. So I think the reason he doesn't have the markings is just because, well, no, because he had the marker to draw the equation on his shirt. So I wonder why he didn't redraw his markings, unless they did that with a different thing than a marker before, and they just don't have access to whatever that was on this spaceship. Is probably why. Because I'd like to think, because they've been petrified and depetrified like multiple times since Treasure Island. You know, so I was assuming that he was still drawing his markings on, you know, in relation to the conversation that they had about keeping them until they had defeated Y-Man, but maybe he just isn't able to do that on the spaceship because he doesn't have those materials, I think is why they're not there again. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, it looks like Gen is missing. Did Gen ever have markings on his face? I thought he
That's
did.
right. Yeah.
Gen had the smile.
Had the evil mouth. Yeah.
So
he doesn't have his shit either.
Yeah, I think that in anticipation of them.
A while ago.
But he had kept drawing it on though. He was like everybody had just kept drawing theirs on.
So I think now that they're like, we are facing Y-Man, we've succeeded to get them in space, and I think less of like, it's like they're anticipating their team not to fail. So like,
sure.
I think as more of like a morale solidarity thing, they're not adding those marks, because if they fail, they're gonna get petrified and they're gonna get those marks eventually anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like,
yeah,
clean slate, new start. I love Ryusu's Harlock outfit. It's just so cool. It's too cool for school, for real.
Ever since you pointed that out last review, I've been thinking about that. Yeah, I even like went and pulled up like the Harlock manga and like shit like that, like from back in the day or whatever. Been looking at Harlock stuff.
Man, Ronan, what was your favorite part of this chapter?
So I actually liked Senku's okay, so I like the moment where we see, like, right before the chapter ends, Senku kind of just dismissal of going to the moon for the first time. I don't know why I found that so funny, of just kind of like everyone's, you know, hyping up, you know, we're in space, right? We're about to land on the moon, something a handful of people ever have done. And it's like, yeah, have you thought about what you're gonna say when you jump on there? It's like, nah. I just feel like that's such an in character moment. I just really appreciate
so Senku, because it's like you're the one that has been wanting to go to them. Like that was your motivation pre-petrification. You know what I mean? Like that was the thing you always wanted to do, and now that you're here, you're being so cool about it. And it's like, of course you would. Yeah.
He's like, I was more focused on getting there. Like not about
exactly. It's the challenge of doing this. It's not necessarily like actually being there. And it's a small moment in this chapter for sure, but I do definitely just like that kind of very in character a moment for him.
Hell yeah.
He has some really good lines after that, and he's like, that said, compared to the landings of the 20th century, our lunar mission's meaningful in a whole different way. With all of humanity on the line, we're taking this first giant step into the battle for future science. So get excited. And I was like, that does, because he was always talking about like, hey, let's get motivated, let's get excited. So like,
that's been his catchphrase the entire series.
I like that they've worked that in.
It fits so well as the first thing you say when you take a step on the moon. Like it's just the perfect catchphrase.
I like that he blended the Neil Armstrong thing, and he's like, we're taking this giant step, you know, instead of a step and giant leap and all that stuff. It's like, all right, cool. I like that. It's a nice touch.
Oh yeah. Eagle, how you feel about this chapter?
Oh, sorry, I just got caught up looking back at past chapters to try and see how far back.
Oh, the markings.
The markings.
Yeah.
I went back to like 196 when Suika got them all out of the petrification. and Senku and Zeno still have their marks. Gen,
Yeah.
Chrome, everybody else. Chrome
Oh,
never
Makes
had any.
sense.
sure, probably because it was like 7 or to 10 years
Time
But they were
had
all
passed.
petrified that long, so it's just weird.
Oh, wait. Some people have their markings and some don't.
Gen doesn't.
Who has their? Oh wait, you said Senku and
Zeno did.
Zeno still do, but Gen doesn't.
Gen didn't, and it didn't look like Ryusui did.
Oh shit.
I love
Yeah,
that
I
double
don't know.
spread on
It's
8
weird.
9 though.
It's weird. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm pretty sure they gave explicit explanation on why.
Yeah,
Like Senku was like, "This is why mine are still here." I just can't remember what chapter. If anybody remembers what chapter,
Yeah.
Senku gave the explicit explanation on why he kept his markings and other people lost theirs. Let
Yeah.
us know in the comments.
Yeah,
been a while.
and I know the explanation is there because it's like it can't be like
I remember-
it can't be like a oops I forgot thing because Riichiro and Boichi clearly like did it on purpose because some people have them and some don't. So since they did it on purpose, it doesn't make sense for them to not then follow up with an explanation as to why. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I remember Senku saying like, "This is why." Like I just can't remember when. But as far as this chapter goes, I gotta say, my favorite part of the chapter probably is just like honestly the end. It's just because it's like so Senku centric.
Yeah.
Not Senku centric because there's like Taiju involved, Chrome's involved, and as far as like kind of the joke.
but it's such a Senku moment.
It's
Yeah.
such a Senku moment.
Yeah.
And that phrase that get excited, man. I don't know what it is. I just hear
It just
his
gets
voice
me
in
excited.
the anime. I hear his voice in the anime that
Yeah.
it's so fire.
Hell
And I just
yeah.
think how perfect his voice actor is. It gets me so hyped. I
Dude,
love Senku.
I was watching the anime like recently, and like I don't know whose translations it is. I think it's Crunchyroll, and it's not Get Excited. It's fucking like This Is Exhilarating or some shit. They like changed that on some site. Maybe it's not Crunchyroll. Maybe it's like one of the illegal sites or whatever. I want to say it was.
I think you might be
Crunchyroll.
right on Crunchyroll.
Yeah. It's not Get Excited. It's This Is Exhilarating, and it's like
That's a
why
little
why
hard.
change that? You know what I mean? Like you gotta know that it has to be Get Excited. Like did none
More
of
syllables mean more brain cells.
did the translator like not read the manga or something and just get like the fucking verbal audio from the main from the Japanese show and then just literally translate it to like exhilarating instead of like what it's supposed to be and has been forever? Maybe, I don't fucking know, but it's like you should know. Maybe I'm being mean and I don't know what I'm talking about, but still.
I really dig all the moon facts, like the idea, like, because I didn't think about how the moon is all pocked up and just ravaged on the back end.
I knew it
because,
had
like,
craters because of asteroids running into it, but I didn't know like I always knew
Scale.
about like the dark side of the moon, you know what I mean? Like I've always heard that, but I didn't have this just raw information about how we legitimately only see one half of it, like because of its gravitation.
It matches our planet's rotation.
Right.
So yeah, we literally like it rotates with the planet and
Right.
it's weird
So-
as fuck.
yeah,
It's hard.
Yeah, and that diagram, the little chibi diagram of the moon circling and spinning and catching all of the asteroids in its back is just like I remember just being like, damn, bro, like this is fucking cool.
Yeah, in my live reaction, I was like, damn, I never even thought about that. The moon is like taking asteroids in the back, like
Yeah, it's our shield. That's so
It's
sick.
like that
Science
one
is
meme
so
where it's just
cool.
like,
Yeah.
oh man, I like the language that they use. The idea like because like transitioning from 11 to 12, where like Rusui is calling it a guardian deity,
Yeah.
and it's like because like the planets and the moon are typically called celestial bodies. I like that kind of like romantic language that
Yeah.
Rusui uses because he is about desire and like the idealistic part of that stuff.
it's almost crazy, like planetary evolution. Like the Earth gets hit with an asteroid, a huge chunk of it, like it obviously devastates the fucking ecosystem or whatever, and a huge chunk of it breaks off. But then that chunk like forms into the moon and then acts as a shield against future asteroids.
Yeah, and I doubt that there was any like real ecosystem to worry about as far as like living beings are concerned whenever that asteroid hit and broke off the chunk that became the moon. That was probably like long before life, was even single-celled, on the planet. But yeah, I totally see what you're talking about. Like that the timeline of how things that seem so every day, like it just seems so like obvious,
Natural.
you know what I mean? Yeah, like natural and obvious. Like of course the moon is there, and of course it does these things. Like all of this scientific explanation for the events that are just so epic from start to finish if you were to tell a story about it. And it's like there's just such a deep story there for things that have become everyday that we don't even think about really. And it's like watching fucking like science documentaries like fucking like Carl Sagan's Cosmos and like shit that actually give you the history on like a play-by-play kind of way. It just does wonders for your appreciation of nature, you know what I mean? And just like studying on this kind of stuff in general is just
whatever
one of
happened
my favorite things.
to whatever happened to the David Attenborough documentaries that used to be on Netflix, the Planet Earth 1 and 2 and the Ocean.
Oh yeah, I don't know, but those are all gas too, man. Like, fuck Netflix, bro.
Check those out. I think that they probably only got the rights to them for a temporary amount of time because a lot of stuff cycles through.
The best one they had was Inexplicable Universe with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It wasn't like a Planet Earth or a Cosmos style thing with a bunch of editing and like really cool visuals and like a script. It was more of like a lecture style, like off the cuff Neil deGrasse Tyson just talking about amazing scientific concepts in regard to like space and its expansion for like 8 episodes. Like went into like unsolved mysteries of the universe and like all of this crazy shit, and literally just like a sitting down and having a conversation with him style of show. And they took that off Netflix too, and it's like, fuck you.
Did you ever watch the one? I don't want to like dwell on this.
Yeah.
But did you ever watch the David Attenborough, for the audience too? The one called Our Planet, I think it was.
Yeah, I did peep that. Yep.
That
I peeped
one
all
was
of those.
a really tight one. It was like a fucking autobiography style documentary about not only nature but like his life. And it was kind of juxtaposed in a way where he was like, when I started out doing this shit, like these were the numbers. And he like basically goes for a play-by-play and like brings you through the years and like gives you statistics on how much nature and wilderness has been reduced. And it's
shit
like
hits.
so fucking sad.
Yeah, man.
Like, by the end of it, he's just basically shaming us the whole time. He's like, yeah, we gotta fix this shit
because we fucking suck.
We deserve it.
David Attenborough is the one I want to tell me.
He was literally like, yo, I can't remember. I think it was maybe Borneo. I don't want to name a country specifically, but in some country where they like farm palm oil, I think it was. It was like the whole, maybe it was Bolivia, I think. The whole fucking country used to be covered in a jungle virtually. Now, the only jungle on the entire fucking island is literally a 1 mile fucking strip.
No.
And the rest is covered by fucking palm oil farms.
Oh my
just
God.
rows of the same fucking
We
tree.
fucking suck.
And it was just like, damn.
Human greed, man.
That's
Human
another
greed.
reason why a story like Dr. Stone is so important, because not only does it like, work as a doorway to this subject matter in general on like a highly researched and like analytical level for some people, but also it's just does wonders, I want to assume, for people's appreciation of the planet, because you're literally watching, a fictional, mind you, but still gradual and organic progression from Stone Age to modern society. You know what I mean? You see how important corn is. You see how important, all of these things that you never think about in their application and their contribution to our way of life today. Yeah. And you go like, oh my God, we blow this up for parking lots. Like we destroy this for super malls.
Why man was right.
Yeah, like and it's like, holy fuck, man. Yeah.
Why man was right.
Man. But getting back into the chapter, man, oh my God, really these moon panels are gas. I just have to say, I don't know how much of it is like a lot of these you never know how much is going to be a photograph whenever it comes to
Mm-hmm.
you know
Or like
manga
a
artists that
computer-generated
are
image.
yeah, like because it's like when you have a manga artist like Boichi that leans into photorealism just like naturally, like even in his like penciled things. You know what I mean? It's always going to be tough, and that's the reason why they do it. I've seen, documentaries where Inio Asano says, I want the reader to ask themselves, is this a picture or was this illustrated? You know what I mean? So, like, that's never been a problem to me, and I'm not trying to, like, act like it is. But the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm fascinated by the fact that I can't tell if it's a picture or if it's an illustration. In these
And I
moon
like it
shots
like
that
that.
Boichi uses, yeah, like, they're so fucking fire, bro.
I
I mean, I
love
think
that.
there's some that are pretty clearly illustrations, pretty clearly images, some that are kind of mixes between the two.
It's like this one on 14, the like left side panel on 14.
Yeah.
Like, how can that be a photograph? Obviously not. It's like so close up. It's so, but it is so photorealistic at the same
It
time.
is. It
Besides
still looks really nice.
besides the
Yeah.
landing pod, yeah.
I really enjoy the like scientific realism where they're talking about like, hey, they're going at 38,000 kilometers per hour, and here's the sextant and how we're using that to like figure out where our position is based on the stars because those don't move and they're far enough away that we can actually like position ourselves even though we're that far away from the Earth and this close to the moon.
Yeah.
And I liked the like visual curve on page 17 of like watching the spaceship just like shoot out jets in different directions as it kind
Yep.
of like
Which
rights
I believe
itself.
is
Yeah, as it
scientifically
corrects.
accurate,
Yeah, I
as to how
mean,
that's the actual landing technique they use, kind of like soften and then whoop,
Soften
which
and
makes
propel,
sense
yeah.
because Zeno obviously is a fucking NASA, engineer, rocket scientist. So,
Yep.
yeah.
hey, I love the consultants. Shout out to those guys
Shout out
and
Kurare.
gals. Yeah,
Kurare the
shout
goat.
out to all of them. Bringing the facts.
Yeah.
Love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Making this shit feel so real while so
Yeah.
fictional.
And the coding consultant that was brought in specifically for Psy.
Yeah, Sai
Surreal.
Sai as a character just has their own consultant.
Straight
Yeah.
up. I like that they're like, hey, Ruisu's up there, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll just be another piece of cargo. I'll petrify. Don't worry about it. And I like that they have that little thing on Asai at page 4, where he's just like, time to run the numbers again. There's lots of plenty to recalculate. Like even the
Yeah.
addition of a human body's worth of weight in space occupancy, even though
Because
they're
they
not
have
breathing.
to, dude, they have to calculate and just like account for
That's another set of lungs.
every gram of weight
Mhm.
and like the amount of oxygen that they're taking in, at
Every
one
breath.
time, like every breath, every pound, like everything has to be accounted for because the margin of error is just that non-existent in this environment. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah,
fact
which is
that
why-
they're taking time to give you a sliver of a panel for Sai to say something like that lets you know that they really want you to believe that these guys achieved, space travel. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah. That's one of the reasons why I always think about like when folks are just like, "Oh yeah, no, what about people trying to like, go to Mars and like or like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are gonna escape the planet?" I'm like, "Nah, dog. They're gonna live in like a tightly regimented prison for the rest of their lives if that happens. Good
Yeah.
luck."
Yeah.
It's no way to live. And then like at the same time, the gravity will cause your bones to lengthen. Lack of gravity will cause your bones to lengthen, and you'll have a degenerative disease for the last of your life.
Ooh, shit.
Yeah, it's tough. Like people weren't meant to live outside the bounds of Earth, so we got to take care of it.
Yeah. Straight up.
Gotta get that artificial Earth gravity.
Yeah.
So do we think they petrified Kohaku because she was kind of like the least useful? Like I don't want to say least useful, but like in this scenario, she obviously
She
is
has
the
a
least-
role, and it's to be a warrior on the fucking
Exactly.
battlefield of the moon. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, do we think they just petrified her to like save the oxygen? They kept Ryusui and them bopping around, or
Oh.
was Senku the only one that stayed up?
I
'Cause,
think
yeah,
because Stanley's not shown, so I think that Stanley and Kohaku were both frozen. They're just like, hey, we'll have Senku to kind of like keep an eye on the electronics, make sure everything's running ship shape, and we're gonna use Rusue to land the damn thing.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. Is Stanley really not shown
I haven't seen him.
from literally page
12.
3 on?
No, you see Stanley on page
2.
12.
Page 2. He's eventually on page 12 when everyone's on taken care of.
Where?
Middle panel.
Oh yeah,
page
it's right
12.
there on the left. Yeah, I was looking
Cigarette
on
in
13.
mouth. Yep.
Looking on 13. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah,
what you guys just said makes sense. Yeah.
It's unclear, who exactly they petrified and for how long, but yeah. It makes sense that they would need to petrify at least one of them because there's one more set of lungs than was accounted for, so.
Yeah.
They needed to at least make up the difference for like their earlier conversation of burning up that much oxygen.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And they might have even need to petrify 2 people to account for that. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Fun to speculate on these things.
Oh yeah. Ronan, you got any like closing statements for Dr. Stone this week?
I just feel like this was a very. I just feel like this is very emblematic of like the series as a whole. You get your scientific things. You get like little mini bubbles of information about things like the Doppler effect, which is like has like a very small panel to itself.
Right.
Obviously, how fast spaceships are. All these different things.
I didn't know spaceships went that fast. It makes sense, but I'm gonna tell you right now, like I don't know how I never learned this, but that information kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, that rocket
Exactly.
bullshit is different.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Yeah, and the Doppler effect panel was gas too. Yeah, keep going though.
Yeah, just things like that. I feel like make it very clear that this is just like a very Dr. Stone chapter, if that makes sense. Like it was just very down. Like I was about to say down to earth when that doesn't really that doesn't necessarily fit with the context of this chapter. But it was very to its core of like what the series is and like what the appeal of it is. So overall, very enjoyable.
It's crazy that it keeps that vibe in chapters this far into the story, right? Because you said that this was a very Dr. Stone chapter. And I think about what that means for me, you know what I mean? And it's true, you know what I mean? But it's so wild that it can be such a Dr. Stone chapter while we're at an area of the storytelling that is the exact opposite of where it started. You know what I mean? Like we literally went from the Stone Age to landing on the moon. And even in these highly advanced technology chapters of storytelling that we have, like where we're at right now in the current story, that it can still just feel so what's the word I'm looking for here, so Dr. Stone at its core, when the core of what we believe Dr. Stone to be, was developed during a time where there was literally no technology. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense right now, but it's just really impressive that it can keep such a consistent tonal vibe throughout the entire, maybe not tonal, but like just like a consistent vibe that feels,
you get what you asked for when you were getting into Dr. Stone. Like even though it's so technologically different from where it once was, like the character interactions are similar, the vibe is very similar. Like the tone may be a little bit more serious, maybe, but overall it's still Dr. Stone at its heart. It hasn't like transformed into anything different. So I feel like this is a lot of other series, I think, for better or worse, will take on a little bit of a transformation from what they once were.
Right.
But Dr. Stone is, while not being bland or boring, still the same thing it was from chapter 1 to now, right? You get the same general appeal. I think that's a very impressive thing to pull off.
That was very well said.
It definitely has consistency while still maintaining growth. That part of Dr. Stone reminds me of Boichi's like earlier work in Sun Can Rock, where there is a lot of emotional growth and there's growth in the idea of like the little gang that he has goes from just like 5 guys in suits and no car and to managing properties and all this other stuff, but still maintaining that kind of like core and heart of the series.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
I think that about does it for Dr. Stone for me.
I'm definitely good.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and move right into the final chapter of the night. Chapter 341 of Boku no Hero Academia. The story of how we all became heroes, part -1.
Mm-hmm.
And we start off with a nice little non-color, just kind of aesthetic cover of Toga here, and it's
Yeah.
a little different, but it's really nice. And somebody pointed out how she's kind of got like a twice aesthetic on her
Mm-hmm.
LT.
costume here in my live reaction,
Love it.
Ooh,
Which-
yeah.
which makes sense given the kind of info that we get later in the chapter here from Dabi. I just like dude. If Sadman's Parade comes back out,
It gonna happen.
that shit is gonna fucking be OD,
I'm gonna cry
bro.
again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Gonna
fuck
cry
yeah.
again.
I love how cinematic the opening of this fucking chapter is, bro. Like, this is Kohei. Like, this is one of my favorite bags from Kohei, right? Because, like, the writing for the villains in My Hero Academia always feels like just so much deeper and like more poetic than
Yeah.
the writing for like the students, and like that makes sense or whatever because they're evil, troubled, traumatized, and flawed characters that bring a certain tone with them, you know, in the storytelling. But the dynamic that Kohei has established inside of the League of Villains just feels so fresh and interesting to me. Like there's a lot of visual storytelling used in the writing for all the characters in the league, and that's just so important for them in contrast to the heroes, I feel like, because like you need a significant divider like that in stories like these, I want to say, where you have such a strong definition of morality on one side or the other. And there is a lot of fucking moral blur and ambiguity inside of My Hero Academia, and that's another one of the points as well. But like they're trying to have a very black and white sense of morality in their story, you know what I mean? So having such an intense tonal shift from one perspective to another is like guaranteed, basically. But the way that it's executed inside of My Hero Academia is so cinematic, and it's like one of my favorite things that Kohei does.
Yeah.
Man, this, like the way they've destroyed the house, and like when I was reading the graffiti,
Yeah.
just like the part where like Himiko age 3, Himiko age 2, crossed the fuck
Yeah.
out. All this stuff like you'll pay, your fault for having her. Like there's this one part on page 4, be judged, pay with your lives. And it's just like I get it. You're the girl hurt a lot of people, but like it reveals a lot of society in the thing like some people don't care about right or wrong. They just want someone to pay because they've been hurt.
Yes.
They don't care who has to pay. They just want someone to.
Yeah.
There was like, yeah, just a lot of stuff like that. Heavy stuff.
Super heavy
There's
shit.
the dream analysis stuff that I thought was super interesting. I had to like read up on some stuff because she was talking about like the little dreams, and it was interesting. I've never seen a character do like self-harm in this way.
Yeah.
Where she's chewing on her own wrists and drinking her own blood because her impulse is to.
Right.
But like, so through dream analysis, we can cover some things. Like Rides by the Lilies is always about finals and final goodbyes.
What is? Hold on. What
uh,
did you say?
Okay, so like in like the cover picture and in the dreams, there's red spider lilies that are in the shot.
Oh.
And those are emblematic in the language of flowers, final goodbyes, specifically in Japanese culture. So she is saying goodbye to her, like it is saying goodbye to twice, because once she uses his blood, she can never see him again, even after the Sad Man parade. And then even in the dreams, she has those in her dreams, and this might be a kind of a more of a nod of like this is saying goodbye to her childhood before Dabi burns the house down.
Oh my god. I just thought of like, dude, is Toga, because the fact that she's ingested twice his blood but not used his ability, is that like considering like quirk factor, I think is the concept that has to do with this, where your essence, your soul, your like being is like, you know, a part of your quirk. factor
Oh.
or whatever, to where like, you know, like similar to like Vestiges or Deku, you know, or what, or in like the Shirakumo stuff with Aizawa and Present Mike, where Shirakumo was still like somewhere in there. You know what I mean? Like, is she like having visions of Twice, having conversations with him like internally, like through his quirk factor because of the ingestion of his blood, and then like once she finally uses his technique, he'll be like gone from her system, and she like won't be able to like interact with him on like a, you know, quirk factor space kind of way. Like his actual soul and essence will be completely gone from her, and she won't be like, have we seen anything like that? I think I don't think we've actually seen anything from Toga to where she has a dream of Twice or anything. But now that you're talking about this, like, I'm thinking like, man, like if that's an off-screen thing, but is a thing, like that's makes this scene so much like sad, or this chapter so much sadder to think about.
That makes me think that when she does use his blood to like activate his quirk, she's gonna have that moment where she speaks in Split, and it's just gonna be him saying goodbye.
Saying the other thing? Oh fuck, dude.
Yeah, I think that she's gonna have that moment. That'd be so sad. I'm
way.
gonna cry for sure. Like Twice always makes me cry. But like the part that I was focusing on was
would be
like the
crazy.
sparrow like digging into her stomach and making a nest.
Oh sure.
So like in dreams stuff about the stomach, it talks about new changes in life but difficulty accepting them, indicative that you can no longer tolerate a certain situation or predicament, or that you have a heavy burden. Sparrows, dreams of birds symbolize goals, hopes, and aspirations. Sparrows specifically represent positivity and energy, which is how she views her love of others. It's a positive thing. Her goals are to be like others. And then sparrows, as a symbol by themselves, they represent simplicity, self-worth, freedom, which is about her thing. It's like the rule of society is way too complicated. I don't want any of that. I just want to be happy. I want to love myself and be a regular girl and be free to do so. And the cherry on top, the way she views her affection to others. Sparrows are the sacred animal of the Greek goddess of love and lust, Aphrodite.
Whoa, that's so
Yeah, it's a lot
such
to
layered
like, dig
symbolism in this art.
Project Dream.
Project Dream. Project
Dude,
Dream
no,
analysis.
shoot,
Mello.
and one last moment before Professor Mello goes away. So sailors, like Jack Sparrow, right? Sailors have had a tradition of having sparrows tattooed onto their bodies because sparrows are seen to carry the spirits of the dead. So if they died out in the ocean, their spirit would be carried away by a sparrow instead of being left to rot in the middle of nowhere.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
that's like
even as a
beyond
child, her
interesting.
dreams are
That's
about
like
that.
entirely intentional after your explanation on this dream analysis bit. Like every single thing you said about the symbolism of the sparrow in your dreams and just in general ties into Toga's character at some point. And like that's just like, that's not some heady, reachy, you know, try to find parallels kind of thing. Like that is too accurate to her character for it to be an accident. Yeah.
When you first introduce her first like childhood flashback, she's drinking the blood of a dead sparrow. And her parents are like, "Hey, put that down. Dead things are gross. Don't do that."
Where's that?
That is like the very first instance.
Oh, that's
of her
back
childhood
earlier in the
flashback,
story.
way
Oh
back.
my
The sparrow has been there
God.
the entire time, baby.
Hey, chill out,
Make me sad again,
That's
Koei.
wild.
bro.
Question, because I don't remember.
Yes.
Do we know if Toga knows Hawks is the one who took out Twice? Does Toga know that? Or is that something we know?
I think she
Yes.
should know.
Because
she-
when Dabi was giving his monologue in front of the world, he specifically told on Hawks and was like, "You guys don't even fucking know what good is. Your fucking number 2 hero just murdered a guy, you know."
Yeah.
So yeah,
Silenced
had-
him.
Yeah, I was having some, because that just went deep, right? So I was having a conversation with one of my friends on Twitter, and they were like, they were saying, we were going back and forth, that maybe the Red Sparrow is supposed to be indicative of her fate against Hawks, because if you look at a sparrow's wings and you compare it to Hawks, they do look rather similar, and you may be able to compare the Red Sparrow in particular to
And
Hawks,
his
the
wings
one who
are
took,
red in the
yeah,
anime.
He has red wings. Oh god.
the one who
Oh
took,
shit.
and I think it would be very sort of. I personally think that Hawks is going to be on a warpath to take out Toga, who is kind of sort of carrying on Twice's legacy through herself.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, I feel like her hesitance throughout all of this chapter, like, she never really shows super I guess excitement about anything that she's doing. When Dabi asks her if she's ready for what's coming, she doesn't say, yeah, I'm ready. She just says, it's late to ask that. That's not a question you can ask me now, right? I'm too deep in. That's not really the type of answer. Yeah, that's not the type of answer you give if you genuinely feel like you're on the right path. That's the type of answer that someone who's resigned to their fate gives.
Yeah.
And I feel it'd be very interesting if Hawks and her are having the conflict. And I personally been of the belief that Uraraka is going to be kind of interrupting or being part of any conflict with Toga.
Yeah.
So her maybe rectifying her mistake of condemning Toga might be something that we see in the future. But I do definitely,
I like that.
yeah, I do definitely think that because of Twice, Hawks and her fate are tied together. And because of, I mean, Uraraka and Toga go back to the beginning of like Toga's character introduction, to be honest. Like, very early on, they both have a clear admiration of Deku. They both are like clearly meant to kind of sort of, I guess you could say, parallel each other, but they're more meant to have this sort of face off. They have it in the war, obviously. Horikoshi went out of his way to show them having this conflict. And I think that with Uraraka's speech, like admitting, like, okay, yeah, everybody needs help, you know, all this stuff, clearly moving forward her character and things like that, it'd be very interesting to see a clearly, like, it just kind of mentally exhausted Toga deal with like Uraraka and Twice's killer being Hawks.
Yeah, I love that, because I could totally see Toga in her confrontation with Uraraka, you know, while Uraraka is already kind of conflicted in their situation in the first place, but then to have Toga drop, you know, well, no, because I think Uraraka does definitely know that Hawks killed Twice too, because Dabi.
Yeah,
but I'm like thinking,
I'm
thinking of a situation of like where she's like, "Did you know that your fucking mentor killed my fucking, you know,
my friend, my best
homeboy?"
friend.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
I think that she would be like, Uraraka, it's like, I know you want to stop me, and I know you say you want to help me, but like, he killed my friend. What would you do if you were me?
Yeah, as more of like a not to shock her with the information, but more as to like just
like
talk about it. Talk about it on a deeper level that she hadn't maybe considered yet. Yeah.
Because Toga clearly is emotional about this, and she seems to get even more vulnerable when near Deku or Uraraka. Like, I remember her distinctly like tearing up when Uraraka's like, "You're a villain. I have to condemn you," and Toga's just kind of like, understandably, when you understand her perspective, upset at the person she admires a lot, condemning her, just being like, "You're in this box of evil, and therefore I'm going to take you down as such." I think that's it's a bit interesting, and I feel like Horikoshi wouldn't write her to be so hesitant. Like, she doesn't seem to be happy any time throughout this chapter. It's just melancholy. It's just sadness. When Dabi burns down her house, she looks like she's just finished crying. It's just not. She just doesn't look like the energetic sort of character that she initially was. And I think that as you were saying earlier, things have been getting more and more complicated, and that's just not how she wants to live her life. So it's becoming harder and harder for her to live the way she wants to.
The Sparrow simplicity.
Hey.
It's like, I think that her biggest wound, plainly shown through the way the house is desecrated and how her parents treated her, she's always just wanted acceptance, and I think that is her kryptonite in the end. I think that Uraka is going to accept her, flaws and all, and that's going to be the moment that she breaks. Um, Possibly stops, and then in kind of a reverse of Hawks, maybe Dobby comes in. He's like, no, 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 I can't have you give up now. You need to. And he doesn't care about throwing away his allies either, even though he is showing this almost big brotherly moment where he's like, hey, I know you were crying. Whether we cry or smile, the sun keeps on moving. So let's smile. And then he burns down her house, and she's like, you know what? That was kind of you, but we're going to get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's nihilistic. And I think that like Toga and Spinner being the focus of these two chapters, and the idea that both of them have been rejected by society as a whole for behavior or for just pure looks in the vein of like quirk racism.
Right.
I think that acceptance is going to be a core part of their undoing when the final fights start happening. Like,
What do you mean?
Shoji. I think that Shoji is going to possibly, or Tokoyami, or Asui might be the ones that are involved with Spinner. They might be the heteromorphs that are chosen as the squad.
You mean Ashido, the demon-looking one with the horns, the acid.
Oh
shit.
yeah, even that. I was just
So
thinking
you
of-
did mean Asui? Okay.
I didn't mean Asui because like she does have like
Well,
frog
he
hands
said
and a long
Shoji, the
tongue.
arm dude.
Yeah.
Asui, she's a frog, and then
Yeah,
Sure.
Tokoyami's just a bird-faced dude. So like, I feel like those
Bird-faced
folks are going to be the ones.
I wonder how different Asui looks to like society, like in like real life, quote unquote, because it's like I look at Asui and yeah, when she's in her, you know, full get up and she's always in like a froggy kind of like stance or whatever, like, and her tongue is out doing crazy things, like sure, it's easy to see her as a frog, but when she's just like standing there like in her regular schoolgirl like outfit or whatever, like she doesn't really
doing the little T-Rex thing.
yeah, it doesn't.
she's
She
got
doesn't
them long
look-
ass frog hands.
Oh, does
Yeah.
she? I'm just trying to remember
brothers.
physical indicators of like heteromorphy. You know what I mean?
She's
So,
the
like,
least
she-
heteromorphic of her family. Like when you do the little flashback of her family,
Yeah.
her family looks like frogs.
Oh,
and, like,
okay.
Her childhood friend was that gal that looked like a snake, and so like I
I
think
don't
that
remember any of the.
she's like the white passing equivalent of a heteromorph.
That's
You
hilarious.
know? I mean, like she's like, oh yeah, you don't look that heteromorphic, and I'm like, thanks, I hate you.
Oh
Like,
my god, that's so funny because that's like so
Dude.
accurate.
yeah, tell me about it. They're like, ugh.
Oh, yeah.
You don't seem that Asian. I'm like, I hate you.
No.
uh,
Oh my
Yeah.
god. But no, getting
that-
into the spinner shit, bro, like I love the spinner scene because I don't know, I just
They
love
better not take this shit out of the anime too.
Yeah, no, straight up. Absolutely, number one, please don't fucking ruin like the spinner stuff because they're already kind of like starting to like erase spinner a little bit.
They
like,
cut
from
spinners
the, yeah.
moments out of the anime, big
Yeah.
moments.
So it's like I don't really have a whole lot of faith there anyway, but like yes, please don't fucking remove any more Spinner from the fucking anime. But I just love Spinner for what he represents in the story because like his story and like what he brings to the narrative is just so X-Men for me. You know what I mean? And like the X-Men inspiration in My Hero Academia as far as references go and like, you know, storytelling, decision making is just like my favorite thing about the inspiration of My Hero Academia, and the fact that we're starting to get this focus on what Spinner represents in the League of Villains as like the poster child for, you know, heteromorphs in the series just creates like the most exciting stretch of storytelling that I've been waiting for, and we're finally starting to like go into it now. But the thing that I appreciate about Spinner so much is that while they're literally laying down this man's kingdom for him, he maintains an air of skepticism throughout the entire exchange because he knows, like, he's a very critically thinking, you know, overthinking, outside of the box thinking member of this team, where he has very straightforward motivations and he knows who he's following and for what reasons. Like whenever anything is happening with Spinner inside of his dialogue and inside of his illustrations, you can feel a skepticism like this is everything that I want, but like
Yeah,
I'm really sketched out on the methodology.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Almost
And
like
yeah,
he's been outcasted for so long that something going right is like there has to be strings attached to this. There's
exactly.
something, and especially when dealing with all for one, that makes sense. Like Shigaraki's clearly not in his best mental state, so he's like, is he even Shigaraki now? He seems to have been the only one to even question that
Yeah.
out of the League of
Yeah.
Villains,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. He's like, because he wants to follow Shigaraki, he doesn't want to follow any old villain, right?
Yeah.
It's not all for one. It's the person who accepted him into the fold, and I think
Right.
that's very important. And just in general, I think Horikoshi is just really, really good at writing his villains. It makes me almost
Yeah.
like jealous for the heroes. I'm like, man, he just writes stuff like when he gets into his bag with his villain writing. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is man.
I say it all the
Yeah.
time. It feels
Like-
like Kohei sat down when he was conceptualizing this story and went, okay, the villains are the most important thing about superhero storytelling. Let me figure that out first and then write the rest of the story around the villainous presence that I've like taken, you know, crazy amounts of time to develop first and foremost. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I feel that too. Like I think it's really interesting that Spinner gets talked over by what's his name? The tech guy from
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, but he gets talked over, right? He has that moment on page 15. He's like, as if I'm some big messiah. I'm not out here saying, I'm only here for you. And he's like,
Skeptic.
But the guy is already skeptic, yeah. I knew their names both started with S's, and I was like,
Yeah, I was like starting to Google it and then it came to mind before I got to
but
the
he gets
wiki.
talked over on it.
Yeah.
And then is like trying to like push on this level of responsibility onto him, and it's just like, yeah, you're a heteromorph. Society gets rags on heteromorphs, but we want to give you the responsibility. We want to defer all this responsibility to you. You can do it. You can be our tool to hurt society. Blah blah blah. And it's just like, man, he's thinking to himself like, I get it. I'm being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really care about me. You only care about what I could represent for you.
Right.
Like,
And this
like-
skepticism has been there in the background with his character for a while. Like we've gotten like multiple scenes where he's like, yo, I started doing this for Stain. You acting, you know, real not Stain right now. I don't know if I'm really fucking with you like for real like that. Like we've gotten scenes like that with Spinner, and Kohei keeps putting him in the scenes where that link between him and All for One is kind of, you know, mysterious and esoteric and just like not easy to really comprehend. Like I remember like however many chapters ago, after the villain hunt, you know, stuff with Deku, and it was like the first look into like the villain's lair after the jailbreaks and all that stuff, and and Spinner was the one who had the hand that goes on Shigaraki's face, and All for One was like, give him his hand back or something, and he like put the hand, you know, back on Shigaraki. Like Kohei keeps putting him in those in between scenes with like All for One and Shigaraki to kind of like drive the point home that Spinner doesn't really know who to follow for real and like what to expect from either one of his bosses. You know what I mean?
Spinner, like it's the whole thing where like Deku is just like, take my hand, Deku, right? But Spinner is going to be the Shigaraki, like, take my hand kind of thing.
Yo.
And I wonder if he manages to save Shigaraki, but ends up getting like, he has to cut off his arm before he fully disintegrates or something like that. Like he's like, grabbed my hand, toss him back over the ledge to save his life. I feel like that's going to be something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because even when All for One's trying to like control him a little bit and nudge him, it's like, hey, anyone can be somebody's hero, because he knows that like Spinner has an idealistic streak and views Stain and Shigaraki as forms of heroes
Right.
in a corrupt society. So
And it would be so easy for Spinner in this situation while they're literally handing him his dream on a silver platter. It'd be so easy, especially considering how far he's come with these characters inside of this faction. It'd be so easy in this scene for him to just be like, oh, really? It's all my, like, I'm ready to go. Like, this is my calling. Like, thank you, all for one. Like, thank you, Skeptic. Like, he's not acting like that. He's like, the fuck you mean? Like, I don't know, man. This all kind of weird. Like, he just maintains that skepticism no matter how good the situation is for him.
Both feet on the ground.
Yes, he keeps both feet on the ground. Yeah,
he doesn't fall to like delusions of grandeur. He's like, I don't deserve anything. I'm just an average dude. Like, I get that you're trying to like make me the four-figure, but I've never felt comfortable leading. I'm just a follower of ideals of my friends.
That's another Kohei's strength, is that he's written these characters in ways to where all of their outlooks and all of their motivations are so fleshed out and so, you know, separate from like the overarching narrative's kind of main goal of like wanting to be the number one hero and taking down the number one villain and all of these things that we're supposed to care about in the foreground. All of these characters all have their own, you know, kind of agency to the point where their next moves are so mysterious and unknown. There's so much uncertainty inside of what any of these characters are going to do at any given moment, despite them being very clearly on one side of the fence or the other. You know what I mean? Like, you literally never know what Dabi is planning. You literally never know how Spinner's character arc is going to, you know, fucking what it's crescendoing into. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. Like, all of these characters are so such volatile wild cards that it creates such an interesting continuation in the series as a reader, where you're like, I need to see the next chapter because I don't know how this is going to go for anyone, individually or as a whole. There's so much mystery there inside of how this is going to end, and I know we're moving towards the end, and that's when you want that compelling writing there, keeping people turning those pages and coming back every week to guarantee, you know, what's going to happen for themselves, because everyone has a different idea, because they're that well written as individual characters, and we know so much about them that, like, it's like, man, he could do this, he could do that, this would be totally in character, but there's different answers for multiple different answers for every character, and that's just like so crazy to have in a story like this at this stage in it. Like, we're in 350 chapter range, you know what I mean? And there's just so many different ways this can go down still.
I love how much emotion he can convey with eyes and small expressions.
Yeah.
Like, on page 6, Himiko is looking at like the empty room, how they threw it all away, and her eyes are gone, and that bottom left panel, she creates this like tight smile where she's like having to accept that kind of thing.
What page?
Page 6.
Yeah.
Where she's standing in the room and she has
Threw
that
it all
small
away.
smile through all the way, and then has this tight, deepening smile where she's forcing herself to kind of be positive through it all. And then she hasn't seen the eyes, and then her eyes are focused again when she's like, smiling is why we live our lives, and then when she's looking fondly at the vial of blood for twice. There's this moment where like, when Spinner is like, Shigaraki, are you all right? His eyes are clear, they're bright. When AFO's talking to him on page 14, his pupils are narrowed, like he's afraid. He's low-key afraid of AFO. When he's looking at like Spinner, and he's like, if I'm the big messiah, right? And he's holding like a skeptical look in his eye, and then you don't see his eyes when AFO is kind of won him over a little bit. It's like, you will give them first necessary change, bring it all down. He's like, you know what? I give up. No more thinking it over. I'm over it. And then you see his eyes on page 17, and he's got like hardened eyes. He's resolved himself. He's going through what he needs to do. And Shigaraki, his eyes staring at Spinner, it's hard to read his expression. Yeah. Like, is that the like because
that's a look of someone who's going through a lot of pain, probably still after his fight with Star and Stripe, with the quirk revolting inside of him. So you can feel that pain too.
Is it a look of betrayal?
Ooh.
For him following All for One's orders.
Or he's staring at All for One, and he's like, you betrayed me. Like, I trusted you. You tutored me. You groomed me to be this villain, and you've betrayed me.
Yeah, I guess we don't know
Um,
exactly who he's looking at all.
it makes me wonder because, like, in the sense that the eyes are the window to the soul, AFO is interesting choice because he never has eyes and is completely
Mm,
amoral and evil. He has no soul.
yo,
Um,
that was deep
and
as fuck.
and the
That was
part that I
awesome.
like,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
I think it's really interesting because parallel to the very first chapter, Sludge appears,
And then we
and
have
Yep.
Sludge
it
here at the
Sludge
end.
is
is
back. Yeah.
is Spinner the Deku to Shigaraki's Bakugo in that moment. You looked at me and you looked like you needed help. And I feel
Yo,
like that's foreshadowing. But that's just me, my
that's
opinion.
fire though. I love that idea,
Mm-hmm. The
bro.
visual
That,
storytelling
that
is the most important thing for me.
Yeah, for sure.
that could be some fire juxtaposition.
Yeah, I was
Yo,
just thinking
holy
about. I'm
shit.
picturing the scene like,
I am
yo.
too, bro.
Oh no.
I damn near am like, yo, how is Sludge gonna hem Shigaraki up? Because I want to see that bitch mirrored. But nah, they Spinner comes out with the backpack like, yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean.
Not the backpack. Throws the
Fuck it.
books at him. Like, hey, take some textbooks.
No,
It'd
that
be very.
spin, that shot put was fire. Go ahead, Ronan.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it'd be very interesting considering like what we do know about like vestiges and things like that. If Shigaraki's being consumed by like All for One's like mind, and what helped pull Shigaraki out is not just Deku but Spinner in his own head, right? So it can be realistic in the sense that Sludge is like a D list villain, right? But he can function as someone that reminds the viewer, us, of like a situation where a relatively weak character power wise is able to pull this much stronger character out from the depths of like their troubles, right?
Yo.
Out from their suffocating things, because All for One is very
Smothering.
controlling of Shigaraki. Yeah, he's literally smothering his personality with his own.
Yeah.
The same way Bakugo literally couldn't breathe while facing the slud monster. So so I think that having
Oh my God. I love
Spinner
this.
pull him out, and then having, you could even say, like, if you wanted to take it a step further, Spinner could be the Deku, and Deku could have evolved to what All Might's position was, where he is the thing that, like, Spinner is what spurs Deku to act in an even greater fashion than he could have before.
Wow.
Damn, that's crazy.
Dude,
just
that's
fucking
so
snapped.
cool. Oh my
You
God,
just
you just went so
snapped, Ronan.
crazy.
Thank you for the alley oop. God,
Yeah, you
I
got
had a
you
hard
and
time
Mello
explaining
just
the tail
like
end.
you and Mello just brought a fucking vibe to the conversation that is just so fucking.
If
This is
Spinner-
hands
off.
down for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. All you that definitely was appreciated.
That was so cold. Yeah,
I will
Yeah.
say for me personally, right? Up until this chapter, for a while, I had not really been digging My Hero chapters.
Really?
They felt kind of slow. They felt kind of, whatever.
Yeah.
But this chapter really was like, this is like
Yeah.
real. Like, even
This
though
one
it's
stands out.
slow plot, yeah, this one
Mhm.
stands out. Like, plot wise, it's slow, but it's like this is the kind of, like, this forcefully reminds you, like, okay, yeah, this is why you get hype when My Hero comes out every week. Like,
Right. It brought back that My Villain Academia vibe for a chapter.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it
Dude.
feels like, just like, I mean, Knox touched on it a little bit earlier in the segment, but like it just feels like you're watching a movie through this chapter. Like
Very cinematic.
it's yeah.
Oh, absolutely. When Ronan was just slam dunking it about how Shigaraki is drowning in power, I was looking at that page on 13 where he's like a curing out, where he's just straight up
Very
like
Akira.
Tetsuo.
Yeah, I
just
was
straight up
yes,
Tetsuo
bro. We
out.
were on the same bro.
Dude. And like it almost reminds me of like how like it is goopy and fleshy and all these things, and you can see like vestigial parts reaching out, and like how Sludge is literally drowning in power, right? The idea of that. I was like, that's so sick. I love that.
Wow.
Um
What an incredible conversation
Ah.
we're having right now inside of My
Yeah.
Hero Academia. This is some
One thing
pretty deep shit. Yeah.
Go ahead.
One thing I really like is Toga, Spinner, and Shigaraki all have shown like the ability to be redeemed, not so much in the sense that they'll turn good, but in the sense that like they can kind of be accepted or they have a desire to be accepted. And it's not necessarily like this innate malevolent nature, if you will, right?
Yeah, they have
Um,
there's the possibility that they can have their ideology corrected, for the lack of
Yeah.
a better word that I can't really think. Like if you look at the Joker inside of the Killing Joke, as Batman can be the Joker, it's all,
Mhm.
you know, just a difference of how they reacted to one bad day. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And they both got shat on by, you know, the world around them, and Batman chose to fight that chaos, and the Joker chose to embrace the chaos and become it. So like that's
Mhm.
like the whole point of the Killing Joke or whatever, but it's always comes back to that one, all it takes is one bad day quote. These people that you're talking about right now in regards to their redeemability are almost working on the adverse of that philosophy, as all it takes is one good day.
Good
You
day.
know what
Yep.
I
And,
mean?
and that can save somebody. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
one thing that makes this so blatant, the ability for them to be somewhat saved is Dobby's pure and utter just like visceral hatred of everything around him. It seems like I think Horikoshi does a very good job of contrasting Toga's like forced smile, like Mello was saying, with Dobby's genuine like elation when he's burning down the house. Like Toga is clearly distraught here, but Dobby looks like he's never had more fun in his life, right?
Yeah.
He just seems to be, in contrast to these other characters, enthralled in what he's doing, right? Obviously, this is the result of negative things in his past, but he seems to be completely fine with going up in a ball of villainous flames, right? Whereas these other
Some men just
characters,
want to watch the world burn.
exactly,
Type
I
shit.
just want to set the world on fire.
Hey, you killed those
Uh,
octaves right
yeah,
there.
thank
You
you.
hit that shit. Fuck, that was
Oh
very
man,
Paul Anka. I felt Bobby
dude,
V.
it's so good because like it's interesting because I love the different dichotomies of like how they view like the past and how they view the world, like Shigaraki believes that the past should be destroyed because he can't handle it, and he wants to reject the world entirely. And then Dabi wants to destroy the world, but for the purpose of the past has been his kindling, and he wants others to pay. Like it's like Shigaraki is like true nihilism, where he wants true nothingness, but he can't. He's one of those people like he can't kill himself, so he'll
Mhm.
destroy absolutely everything along with himself. Dobby's just like, no, I don't care about myself. I just want to make sure you suffer, period. Looking at Endeavor. And then like Toga, Spinner, their goals were just like, hey, these people accepted us when no one else would. So we're gonna tag along. And like deep down, they just want to live in the world. Like Spinner was a neat, he was a shut-in because he knew deep down that heteromorphs were not accepted in the world. He didn't go outside. He was like, nah, 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 until he felt mobilized by Stain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
This chapter was a banger, man.
the visual stuff kills me every time. Like
Yeah.
page 15, they were talking about how the wannabe's copying your costume. Now you're a guiding light to heteromorphs, and I'm like, you know what? Looking at the examples, like zooming in, I'm like, oh my god, they are copying him. I had no
Shouts
idea.
out.
We
I
talked
didn't
about
notice
that.
any of
I
that
was gonna
stuff.
say on my live reaction, I talked about this too. Shouts out to the episode in the past where we saw this panel and literally said these dudes are dressing up like Spinner.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked
I don't
about
think
this in
Mello
the
was
review.
there for. I don't think Mello was.
No, this was
here
back
yet.
when I believe Kiko was still on the show.
Yeah, I think even
Yeah,
Keiko was still there. Yeah.
Because Kiko, I believe, was the one that brought it up.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, these dudes are dressing up like Spinner."
Yeah.
Shout out to
And
my boy.
we had a long conversation about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
I think
Love
it's
that.
Spinner making waves in the heteromorph community since way back, man.
Yeah, for real. They've been looking up to dude.
Yeah.
Ever since Stain got taken out and then Spinner was just on camera for the first time, everyone was like, yep, that's the mains.
That's that gay.
Yeah. I don't know if I had too much more for My Hero this week,
Yeah,
though. I
I
think
think
we
that's-
just had one of the best My Hero conversations that we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
For real.
I need a cigarette.
Yeah,
Good for you
Many,
too. Yeah.
many, dude, Ronan, Mello, snapped. in that segment, bro.
Snapped.
We gotta get him.
The back-to-back double dragon tandem philosophy analysis banger.
Ronan, thank you so much for being here to share these moments with us.
For real, man.
I loved having you in this section
Yes.
and
I
like the
appreciate
rest of
it.
the episodes too.
Yeah.
It was fun being on here. Talking about these chapters is really fun because like you read it and you're like, yeah, I get it. But then you talk about it and you're like, holy shit, like I didn't get it. Like I don't know, I didn't know what I was reading. And I think talking through it just makes it so much clearer. So it was very fun talking through these chapters.
Hell yeah, man.
It
Yeah.
definitely lets things settle because like there's so many episodes where I get chills up my spine because I have like a moment where I'm like, wait a second, son
Yeah.
of a bitch.
Or maybe someone else says that thing that sends the
Mhm.
shivers down your spine. Like that's why like this atmosphere for discussion on multiple series back to back is just so important for me personally, because I feel like Ronan was saying, I read the chapters, I feel like I get it, I take my notes, I feel really good about them. But then the best part about, above my notes that I took, above my initial reaction when I read the chapter, is how I feel about the chapter coming out of segments like these. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because someone said something that made me think about it in a different way that I hadn't considered before. Or maybe, like Mello was saying, you have one of those epiphany moments where you connect a dot that you never would have connected if you were just talking about this in a group chat, or if you were just reading to yourself and contemplating. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, this atmosphere is so important for my understanding of these series. I can't even explain all of the reasons why. But yeah, man, thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure,
that'll do it for
Appreciate you
this
guys.
chapter of My Hero, I believe.
Yeah.
And that will do it for this episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Ronan, man, thank you so much for joining us once again. You fucking snapped on multiple segments tonight. Why don't you go ahead and give our audience a description of what, kind of what you do, where they can find you, and where they can hear you snap on some more Jujutsu Kaisen shit.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys having me on, first of all. And it was a fun conversation. As for what I do, I basically Broken Ronin is where you can find me on YouTube, and I just do relatively similar stuff to kind of like, obviously it's just me individually, but I'll be like analyzing certain characters, doing kind of I don't know if think pieces is the right word, but I'll do things like talking about the morality of a character, whether that be in JJK or different other series. I'm definitely taking this year to expand into a bunch of other series. Bleach, for one of them. I know a bunch of Bleach fans have been enjoying the videos I've been putting out. So just in general, if you like anime and manga analysis, you probably will be able to find something on my channel that you'll like in the near future. So, if you guys decide to check it out, I hope you guys do enjoy.
Awesome. And of course, like we said in the intro, we'll include all those links down below for you guys to click on and follow and subscribe and all that good stuff. And while you're down there, as always, check out our links as well. Links to all of our individual social media accounts, such as Twitter, online communities such as Discord, places to consume the podcast as far as audio listening platforms. We're on all of them. And our online shop and our Patreon as far as ways to support the show. So, with all those words said, this will be another stupendous episode of the Project Manga Podcast wrapping up. I'm your host, Eagle.
Knox.
Mellow Yenis.
Ronan.
Sarabada.